Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the third race of the sixth season of the Dark Horse Racing Series presented by Troy Lee Designs. As we are here in the heart of the Bluegrass State, this is the mile-and-a-half track known as Kentucky Speedway, as we've got 21 drivers ready to take to the under the lights racing at this track in Sparta, Kentucky. I'm Seth Cole, being joined here tonight. Good to have him back in the booth. He's in the booth and in the car, pulling double duty here tonight, but familiar voice here in the Dark Horse Racing Series, Scott Rankin. Scott, great to have you back.
Man, it's great to be back. It's been so long, and I've actually really missed working with you guys. And Seth, I mean, brother from another mother across the ditch.
I'm waiting. I've been counting. See how long does it take for us to get a milkshake reference here tonight? So that's
Oh
hopefully
baby,
waiting
oh
in the
baby.
wings.
You gotta
But
stir this one up like a milkshake. You can't just settle on these tires. You gotta drive them real cruisy.
yeah, I didn't have to wait long. I love it. But
You set that one up. That's
I
your
did.
fault.
I will take it. I will take it. Hey, the crystal ball may come out later on tonight too. Who knows? But I mean, obviously you're in the car here tonight. You were out there turning circuits, testing the limits of what these drivers can do. Obviously, testing the car in the short run, testing the car in the long run. I mean, here this evening, the tracks have been getting relatively smaller in terms of distance since the start of the season. What's some of the things the drivers are going to be struggling with here tonight?
Yeah, so big primary is the car's going to feel one of two ways. It will not feel perfectly down the middle. There is just no way to drive a perfect car here at the moment with this setup. What the driver is going to experience is the car will settle into turn 3 and 4 quite nicely for the first 2 or 3 laps. After that, the rear end roll bar is just a fraction too soft, but that actually puts some skill back into the driver's lap. You've actually got to be really, really cruisy with the way that you pick up the throttle after about the 3rd lap on the run. Otherwise, the right rear tire, she's just going to overheat, she's going to rotate around on you, and that's going to be night over.
It's time to turn them loose here tonight. 140 circuits await these drivers. So far, 2 races, 2 different drivers have gone to victory lane. As Matt Wagner, the pole sitter for the evening, going to lead us into that Geico restart zone, and we're underway at Kentucky.
Yeah, so good restarts initially from Matt. The inside line's going to have a ton of momentum here. We'll have Rayvon slinging to my inside. Going to jam it 3 wide here and see if I can get one done on Jeff Shung.
Eric Peterson with a crossover early there into turn 3 on Matt Wagner. I'm expecting to see a lot here tonight of what we saw in the season opener. A lot of jostling for position in the early goings, a lot of momentum, a lot of runs, and having to take that momentum somewhere, but not as much banking here in Kentucky as there was at the previous racetrack. So does that kind of come into play into having to pick your moments?
Yeah, I mean, it does, because the front right tire is not going to grip initially on this run, so you're going to have a little bit of trouble with trying to get the car to turn in, particularly from the higher lane in 3 and 4. Down the bottom, it will grip up, but then the problem you're going to have is you've got too much slip angle, that rear is going to start to sling around on you, so you're going to be a little bit careful with how you manage it. A few guys going forward early on, and I think Eric Peterson snagged that lead for about half a lap, and Wagner's taking it back.
And you can see our 2 previous winners from this season right there in that shot. They were side by side for 5th. Back in 1 and 2, Rick Rayvon winning the season opener at Pocono, Craig Forsyth with the victory last week at Auto Club. And those 2 statistically, with previous starts here at Kentucky, they come into this race as the 2 favorites. Nick DeGroot would have joined that group as well, 2-time winner here at Kentucky if he was in the field here tonight. But I don't know, we've seen a lot of drivers with a lot of speed during the course of these first 2 races as well that certainly look like they could snag a victory. Wagner has been one of those drivers. David Cook right now running in that 4th position. Charlie Teed actually has a couple of podium finishes here at Kentucky also.
Yeah, it's interesting. This one's going to be about settling yourself in for the long haul. You're probably going to see both lanes stop it up pretty much the whole way through. We're even going to see 3 wide racing at times. It's just going to be about going at the right times. You've got to conserve enough of those tires to give yourself the option at really, really good long run pace. And right now it's just jockeying for who wants to be in the right spot at the right time. A lot of setting yourself up. I think the big thing that's going on right now is people are just trying to read the lanes to that forced caution.
And something you were talking about as well was the cars pushing up there on the bottom. We're still seeing a lot of side-by-side up here, almost 3 wide looking there around the 4th, 5th position. These guys down that inside line, they're obviously having to deal with that push-up sensation. but they're able to hold court there on that inside line, at least for the moment. So, I mean, at what point did they absolutely have to abandon that inside line, maybe move up
It's coming up.
groove and a half?
It's very quickly coming up. And the problem here with Kentucky, pretty much your stock car, your regular stock car sort of style of racing, there's sort of two lines through 3 and 4, and they sort of converge. Oh, here we go.
Oh, man, some contact right there behind you. I think that was Luis Gonzalez Nunez with a little contact between himself and Joe McAdory. Plus up ahead, a little bit of action going on there. The Jeff Heisong machine blinking in and out. That's a little dangerous in the lead group.
Yeah, Jeff's doing everything he can to just be safe right now. He's trying to drop back and give himself some opportunities to settle that connection down. It will come back to him. It's not much that Jeff can actually control. I've got the same sort of problem that Jeff's actually has. All the cars are there for me on my screen, and the internet connection's actually to do with packet loss more so than anything else. So he will settle back down. He will get himself back into this race, but he's got to get there first.
Gonna be back around now the 14th position. Looks like he's gotten himself into a safe spot. As at the front, it's Craig Forsyth, last week's winner, fighting with David Cook in the 6th. It was Forsyth versus Rayvon versus Cook last week in terms of pit strategy in the closing stages of that Auto Club race. Cook has been close several times, not only this season, but also last season. Finished a couple of runner-up positions to the eventual champion, Rick Rayvon and Nick DeGroot. But here tonight, might be able to get that first win of his Dark Horse Racing Series career.
Yeah, so it's critical. I mean, we've seen strength from David Cook. He's strong at the road courses, very, very talented driver, has the ability to get this sort of thing done at the right times. But it's just about, I think he drives probably a half level of aggression higher than I think he needs to sometimes. And I think he's trying to prove something to someone, to be perfectly honest. I know he's confident in his abilities and the way that he talks to you. Psychologically, he sounds like a very sure driver, but I get that feeling that he just wants to prove something.
Charles Teed, in the previous 4 seasons running here at Kentucky, 3 finishes up inside of the top 5. Best finish was 2nd back in season 3 to the eventual champion of that season, Robert Maleska III, and right now he's up in that 3rd position. Charles Teed's one of those drivers that didn't really get out of the gate very well here in the beginning portions of the season. He's 9th in the point standings, 46 points out, so certainly looking to gain back some points here tonight that he may have lost at Pocono and Auto Club.
Yeah, and that'll be playing on his mind. I think Tito tonight will be just going, he sort of reverts to this sort of static state of where he's just looking to grab a points finish. He's quite good at it. Right now, he's getting aggressive because he knows he's got the tires underneath him. He looks comfortable. I'm just watching him move his way through the pack. He looks strong. He looks very, very strong. There's sort of a core sort of 5 or so drivers that right now they look like they've got the option to get up front and run. And here comes Rayvon.
Wow, right up the middle, 3 wide there between Cook and Forsyth. A ton of momentum there for Rick Rayvon. And I was going to talk about observing both Rayvon and Forsyth. They ran awfully high there in 3 and 4. Obviously, that translated to great straightaway speed for your current race leader in the 1. But, you know, you talk about the tire temps there, possibly pushing the car up on the inside. What about on that top side? I mean, yeah, you get that great momentum with the extreme outside line, but is there going to be a point where up high is too high and you're eventually going to get that safer barrier?
Yeah, absolutely. So the problem with the high lane is initially on the corner, it just does not grip up whatsoever. So you're really burning right front, trying to find that grip. It is a little bit of a push scenario from oval racing, but it actually feels a lot more like an understeer. It's like the tire just does not have enough weight on it on that front right corner. And I'm wondering whether or not it's going to burn out that front right, but maybe that's the way to drive. Maybe that can serve some right rear. We'll have to see as this run develops. Oh, that rear's starting to get saucy. That's starting to get spicy. So drivers are going to have to be really careful with their throttle positioning now.
You got Luis Gonzalez Nunez there, the red, white, and green machine, 4th car right now in that lead group. Last week, we ended up seeing him make his first start of the season, finished 14th at Auto Club, certainly not the run he was looking for. He spent most of that race up inside of the top 5 as well, so the finish did not in any way indicate how good of a race he was having, and trying to get his first top 5, top 10 of the season as he looks on at the top trio. And they're going to go double wide, 2 rows deep, looks like here. Cook alongside Ravon, and then Forsyth alongside of Nunez. I was watching this in practice, too. Saw at one point, I think it was a group of 8 that were racing side by side 4 rows deep, and they were able to hold it for a pretty good period of time. But you know, as we keep talking about, these cars are going to handle a lot different long range run. Caution's out, actually. Brandon Carl has looped it around the front straightaway.
That's interesting. For how long we're around there? 19 laps. We're about halfway on the tanks. So the long run here is about 38 laps. It is a fairly long run. So we're gonna have to check up to let the pace car by this time. So you'll see the drivers sort of spread out as that pace car comes through. Tires are going to be critical. I expect to see everyone down on pit lane right now because the tires are just wearing so heavily. 19 laps in, good gap in the tank. This will be a no-brainer for the whole field.
Let's take a look and see what happened here to the 30 of Brandon Carl, and yeah, just goes around there. Car snaps loose off of turn 4. I believe that was the 0-4 of Dylan McIntosh that he collected up in that one. So I would pretty much assume that Dylan McIntosh, he's going to have to use his faster pair. That was a lot of damage to the front end. We'll take an onboard with him. But you know, you talk there about tires. Would that have been what led to that loose sensation by the 30 car?
Yeah, so it's funny because in practice I managed to do a lot of running out on my own, and I didn't really get a huge deal of long run running within the pack. It's actually a completely different sensation. You can be a lot more aggressive with your throttle inputs in the pack, but the problem is you've got to get the car to settle and want to rotate first. Once it does settle and want to rotate, the rear will probably follow itself right around. So depends. It's not easy. It's not easy.
What about the fuel load? Because I remember a lot of times when we would talk to drivers prior to mile-and-a-half races, they would say that the back end of the car was wanting to step out a lot more later on the run with the fuel consumption, the back end getting lighter. Do you feel that here on a long run at a track like Kentucky?
Yes and no. It's sort of, you do feel it. It just sort of exacerbates the effect that you're already feeling from the tires and the load that's going through. So for those of you at home and don't know a huge deal about the IndyCar, perhaps this is your first broadcast, effectively, where the tank is positioned with every car will always affect the way that the car handles. For stock cars, that tank right over that rear tire, very, very big, very heavy cars, so that fuel load doesn't have a huge bearing on the overall weight of the car. What it does do is it repositions where the cars sort of roll. Indy cars, a lot lighter cars, a lot higher speeds, more downforce. The way that they're going through the corners, very, very impacted because the tank, and where the tank is situated in the car, lower center of gravity as well. As that fuel burns off, that's load over the rear tires that you no longer have. It's no longer pressing the rear tires into the ground. That means you get this really light, loose sensation as well. You're on older tires. The Indy cars react to that more. Basically, the lighter the car, the more that fuel load will have an impact. And, well, this is about the car that should have the most impact of everything.
Well, David Cook started this race from outside of the top 10, the 11th position, and he'll be the one to lead us back to green. While we got the opportunity here, looks like we got a couple more laps under pacing. Bring everybody up to speed on what the point standings look like coming into this race after 2 races in the books. Rick Ravon currently the points leader over David Cook, 24 points in hand. Craig Forsyth with his victory last week up 13 spots to 3rd in the points. He is 28 points back. Jeff Highsong, who started on the outside of the front row this evening, he is 4th in standings, 35 points back. And Alec Coates, who's had a couple of really strong outings here to begin the season, he's 5th in points, 39 points out. Right now, Eric Peterson, Matt Wagner, Thaddeus McMurray, Charles Teed, and Joseph Morales make up the rest of the top 10. 50 points separating the top 10 in the standings. And a thing that we documented at the beginning of the season, last year there were 3 races, Auto Club Michigan and the Indianapolis race, where there was the opportunity for double points. Only 2 opportunities here this season at Michigan and Indianapolis. So a lot more stress, a lot more importance on consistency and not really being able to rely on that extra double points race to gain back the points that you might lose if you have a bad day.
Yeah, look, and it does change the attitude of the drivers. Last season, I believe we actually saw the start of the season run without fast repairs as well. That was quite critical to the way that the drivers started. There was a discussion that went on halfway through the season. Do we run with fast repairs? Do we run without fast repairs? The decision eventually came down to, yeah, look, we want these guys to race close as well. So there's a lot of things that will affect the mentality of the drivers and certainly where they are in the points. But you've also got to remember, you've got a few guys out here, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, myself. We're only joining this a few races in, so we haven't got the season-wide points. So for Luis, I know that he should be able to run basically every race of the season. from here on out. So that means he needs to be a little bit more aggressive and get some results now, so he drags himself back into the championship. For me, this will be a splash and dash. This will be my only run of the season. So for me, I really don't care too much about, if the result ends in an accident. I'm just looking for a single splash. I'm out here for a bit of fun. That will affect the mentality. But Rick and David Cook, I know for sure that both of those guys, they just race very, very aggressively. They just want to go for it. They want to go for race wins regardless of their championship situation anyway.
We get the opportunity here with these camera angles to be able to look in at different things, driver perspective. Riding on board here with you, Scott. I mean, you mentioned this before we came on the air. 140 laps, kind of an odd number to have based off of the fuel window, and we saw you running around there in 6th gear. A little fuel saving, looks like.
A lot of fuel saving. I'm trying to settle myself in. This is actually a tricky restart here, right up here on the banking. Where we are right now, this sort of evens out the fuel strategy. Everyone should be just about on the same fuel strategy, but I still want to have as short a possible pit stop compared to everyone else here.
David Cook, the lead car, gets to accelerate whenever he so chooses, and he accelerated pretty late. I think he was actually past the Geico restart zone, where if we were in stock cars, you would have had to have restarted in that area. And he and Rick Ravon going to jump out to a pretty early advantage over Forsyth and Nunez. Oh, we saw them kind of pull off these games in the season opener at Auto Club as well. Obviously, team communications going on between those two, letting each other know when the launch is going to take place and catching the rest of the field kind of flat-footed.
Yeah, and they will work together. They're really, really good at it, and they've been running together for a very, very long time as well. So that's crucial to know. They know exactly what they're doing with it as well. So if you want to see two guys working together well as teammates, they're probably the two to keep your eyes on.
Something else that we ended up seeing at Auto Club as well was these two drivers, Cook and Ravon, their ability, the swapping back and forth of positions, that allowed them to be able to open up a very sizable gap at one point early on in that race. Here tonight, is there going to be opportunity for drivers to do that, the swapping back and forth to gain an advantage in terms of intervaling in terms of space, or are they going to not be able to do that based on the fact that this track's a little bit narrower than Auto Club is?
It's not so much to do with the narrow. It's more so to do with the fact that the tires are so much more of an important aspect of the race. So that's going to be the deciding factor. Anytime that it's a lot less wide open and it's a lot more based upon how you pick up the throttle, it's about certainly planning out your runs and being a little bit careful with how you build the runs and where you put the cars at specific points in time. Swap drafting just doesn't fall into that strategy niche.
Looking at the pack that you're currently in there, Charles T just ahead, AJ Hobson just behind. At the tail end of this group here in the 9th position is Gary Corley. We talked about that Forsyth gained 13 spots in the standings last week with his victory. Corley lost the most spots, 11 in total, since he did not start last week's race in California. He subsequently is 16th in the point standings, so second start on the season for him and looking to rebound after losing quite a number of points and a number of positions after the conclusion of last week's race. Top
so
four.
Corley will be aware of that. He'll be driving to that marker. He knows what he's got to do. Corley's a good driver. He's got enough talent. I think one of his biggest issues is he seems to find his way into incidents, or he maybe doesn't read the change in behavior of the car early enough, but he's certainly got enough talent to run up front at different stages.
Top four broken away right now by about a second. You're part of that second group back there. So, I mean, with that interval, is there anything you guys are able to do in terms of working together to reel in that top four? Or at this point in time, is the interval too great and there's too many cars in this pack that now you're basically just trying to fight it out to see who's going to be in that 5th position?
Well, it's just about not fighting each other, not squabbling too much. The instant you squabble, that gap opens up, doesn't close down. So I'm actually looking at Craig Forsyth here. He's the car that's sort of in control of what will happen. And of everyone, Craig Forsyth is one of the drivers that's most aware of the overall race scenario. He's one of the most smart drivers that's sort of going around. He knows when to push, he knows when to fight, he knows when not to fight. So that's what it's about. Teed and I know that I can work with Teed. I know that he's a quick driver. I know that he'll be thinking of the race scenario as well. So that's what I'm trying to do right now, is sort of I'll run up wide here, drop a little bit of momentum. I'm not going to get down in time to shut AJ Hobson off, so I'll let him have the run here, because he's going to pull the whole pack along by letting me do so. So there's little bits and pieces around the track that you just do based upon the race scenario. We're 30 laps into a race right now. This isn't going to decide who's going to win the race. What it will decide is who has a chance to win the race. And if I fight with these guys, if I squabble with these guys, I'm going to make enemies. I can't have my race.
A little interesting there. We were riding on board with T, leading this second group. He was in 5th gear. So what's the correlation of running in 5th gear as opposed to running in 6th gear here? Because we know that obviously the 6th gear would, I would assume, be the draft gear.
That's it, exactly it. So basically, you want to get as low down in gears as you need to get as much drive as you possibly can. The lower the gear, the quicker you're going to accelerate the car. So it's about making sure that you're in the right gear for the right situation at the right time. Right now, you just can't stick it to the bottom. It's front end grip limited. That's the tricky part. So Teed's actually doing a really, really good job leading this pack right now.
Noticing a car blinking back behind you. I think that's Matt Wagner in the 3, so dealing with some connection issues there. Ooh, gotta be careful. Don't want to have gap whack come into play there, as he got pretty close to the left rear tire of AJ Hobson. A little bit further back here, a name we haven't mentioned so far tonight, Andrew Wood in the 64. He had a great run going in the season opener at Pocono. Spent some time out in front in that one, and you see him making his second start here this evening. Right now in the 11th position, trying to crack into the top 10. Matter of fact, you know, there's a lot of drivers coming into tonight that we've seen in the first 2 races of the season.
I just cut off Charlie T. Sorry, I'm having a real problem at the moment because I'm trying to get the car to grip up. I'm trying to work with Charles. I'm actually not trying to fight him, and he knows that. And he just rolled out of the throttle, let me have the corner. And it's so critical to let that happen to everyone as well.
And I mean, how difficult is that when you've got so many cars in the vicinity too? Because it's like traffic control, having to be a traffic cop and figure out what everybody's doing.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to keep your eyes down the track. If you're looking at the car directly in front of you, you're doing it wrong. You're very quickly going to hit that car, because if that car has to check up and you can't see the cars up ahead of you, you've got no clue what's going on down the track. So it's super difficult. The worst possible thing that you can possibly do is look at the car directly in front of you. I'm generally trying to look 4 or 5 cars down the road, if I can.
Might have had the 7 of Gary Corley. Oh, he might be going around here. Man, that thing was all sort of sideways, and he is going to spin it on the apron of turn 4. That's below the racing surface, so I don't think it will bring out a yellow. But Corley gonna loop it around here, coming to pit road. He actually spun across the commitment line to the left of the orange box, so that would be considered a legal entry to pit road. And I'm pretty sure he spun below the pit road speed, but I think he might have gotten up into the wall in 1 and 2 that led to all of that. Fortunately, no caution flag coming out at this point in time. Well, fortunately, at least right now for the viewers. I don't know, maybe you were in the camp of wanting that caution to be able to reel the top 4 back in.
No, we're actually starting to reel them back in. So I'd say the top 4 have burned off their tires just a little bit too much. They're not working together. This next pack, I've been single file for a number of laps here. Let Charlie Teed have it. Oh, there's contact. Wood just couldn't stick the inside line there. He pushed up. So that's what I'm talking about. The 2 lines through 3 and 4 cross over on the exit. And the problem is we're getting a little bit of push, a little bit of unsteadiness. The problem is every single time we're going through 3 and 4, the car feels just a little bit different based upon where you put the car.
You talk about that push up on the inside. Now if you get a run, are you kind of forced to have to try the top side on somebody instead, so that way you don't end up pushing up into them and maybe making contact?
Well, to be perfectly honest, Seth, I'm actually a top group driver. That's where I prefer to be. I'm not one of these inside drivers. I feel really claustrophobic when I'm down on that apron, so I'm preferring to try and get towards the top side. Now, that's actually working this race, because right now I'm looking for a little bit of grip up in that top lane. And the other thing is you get a little bit more time and readability on when that rear end's going to come around on the car. So I think the top group is a safe group. You want to get aggressive, you want to get these passes done, you have to get to the inside at some point in time, because I'm defending from the top.
Andrew Wood going to complete the pass there on Matt Wagner. Now he'll shift up there to the middle or top side behind the 36 of Eric Peterson. Meanwhile, up at the front, David Cook, Rick Raybon, they continue to swap the lead back and forth, but I think that now, as opposed to last week at Auto Club when they were doing this to be able to pull away from the rest of the field, they're not losing Forsyth or Nunez and Teed, Hobson, yourself, Andrew Wood, they're all starting to catch up. I think what they're doing right now is they're trying to make sure that they're going to be able to come to pit road at the same time. When you're out in front, obviously, you're using up the most fuel, so they're giving each other a little bit of draft here every now and then to keep themselves on the same fuel numbers.
I think what's going on with them right now is, you talked about it a little bit earlier on, when you've got to run, you've got to take it somewhere. If you don't take that run somewhere, you're going to go backwards. And the problem for them is, if they give up their runs, that means the cars in P3 all of a sudden gets the opportunity to make a move. So it's not so much about trying to work together as trying to shut everyone else down.
Here you see that second group, as you described, Scott, has now caught the tail end of that top 4. Charles teed up here. Andrew Wood is now caught up. Peterson about to do the same. I mentioned the fact that that caution didn't come out for the Gary Corley incident.
Oh, car on the fence!
Whoa, that's, I believe, Hobson.
That's Corley. It's actually Gary Corley.
It is Corley, the lap machine, who had returned back to the track. We were just going to talk about him, and I think he might have caught the catch fence there down the back straightaway. He was 1 lap down, had just been put a 2nd lap down, and he's going to bring out the 2nd caution of the evening here.
Yes, that's a huge incident. The big issue for a lot of these guys is, I saw the car bounce off and ricochet down the bottom. I knew he was coming back up, so I'm trying to time when I get to him. So I'm lifting out of the throttle. When am I going to get by that spinning car, and where am I going to have the most room to get by him, and then time that throttle perfectly to sort of get by him. That was a crazy one.
I'm pretty sure Corley was running in between 4th and 5th position as a lap machine at the time. I think I saw him just at the tail end of that top 4. And you'll see here what exactly happens. Yeah, that's Nunez just up ahead, who was running the 4th position. Oh, and he's actually going to get Nunez in the left rear quarter panel. That hooks him down the racetrack, and he got someone. I think that was AJ Hobson in the 63.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. It was right about where AJ Hobson was in terms of the running order of things as well. So it would not surprise me if it's Hobson. Hobson will take a good look at his car here. He won't be all that keen to take his fast repair just now. He'll be thinking about it though. If he thinks that he hasn't got a choice, he'd be talking to, I believe, Peterson was just up ahead of him. Peterson will be giving him intel. So Peterson would have taken a good look at his car right there and gone, yeah, no, you have got damage. No, you haven't got damage. Get in and get that fast repair. Worst comes to worst, if he's not sure, he's just got to take it. You don't have a choice, because if he's got too much damage, this race will end before he gets that opportunity.
Well, Corley is not going to be able to take on his fast repair, because when we saw him come to pit road previously, he took it on then. So that's pretty much day done for the driver of the 7. Looks like he has now just been pushed back to the garage area. He's going to join Brandon Carl in the 30 back there. Carl went back to the garage area about 30 laps ago.
So I just had a look. Jeff Highsong dropped a ton of spots then, although I don't think he was up. I think that's just pit lane where he was in pit lane. Somebody's dropped a spot, because I came into pit lane in P10 and I've come back out in P9. So somebody's dropped spots. I'm not 100% sure who. This is an interesting opportunity.
I believe that's Luis Gonzalez Nunez.
So he would have caught that one, and he didn't toggle his fast repair on. He may have to come back down pit lane.
Yeah, we're going to go on board here with Nunez. Look from the rear of the 14 car, and the contact between himself and the 7 of Gary Corley. Now Corley, he got a huge run on Luis Gonzalez Nunez, but we have to bear in mind as well that Corley had come to pit road, he had taken on fresh tires, so there's a huge difference in the fall off between tires that are 20 to 25 laps old and tires that have just been put on. That's why a lap machine got such a big run on the car that was running up inside of the top 5.
Yeah, so there's a couple options for the drivers running in and out here. You got to remember that the cars that are at the lead end of this pack, why do they do swap drafting? What is the whole purpose of swap drafting? You're giving up a spot to a car. Why would you ever do that? The reason that you do that is momentum. The car behind gets a whole bunch of momentum. Why are we talking about that here? We said swap drafting may not necessarily work, and it's because the opposite works in this case. If the lead cars of the pack aren't swapping all the time, you may see somebody, and I'm going to probably pick Matt Wagner's generally the guy who will try and short pit, is that he's going to come to pit road early. He's going to do what we call an undercut within the road racing world. Anyone who's familiar with Formula 1 will know all about over and undercuts all the time. You'd see a little bit of it in stock cars, but it's a lot more prevalent within Formula 1. Now, he'll come to pit road, he'll run those 2 or 3 laps as fast as he possibly can, and his goal there is to be on fresher tires for a longer period of time and clear the pack. He doesn't want people getting back into his draft. So if he can do that, that'll give him control of the field. A well-timed yellow comes out, all of a sudden he's got complete control.
looks like we're not going to have a lucky dog here under this caution. Gary Corley would have been the free pass machine had he not been involved in the incident. He's back in the garage area. The only driver right now that would be lucky dog eligible for future cautions would be CJ Holloman. He's right now 3 laps down in the 19th position. And for the drivers so far that are still running that have used their fast repair, there aren't many of them. Holloman is one. The other one, Dylan McIntosh, who we saw get some pretty good contact earlier on in the race when he and Brandon Carl got together. So, we're about more than a third of the way through this race now. Most drivers have the fast repair intact. And, you were running over some fuel numbers with me here before we came on the air. We're going to be going back green somewhere in the vicinity of about 90 laps to go. So it looks like 2 stops from here to the checkered flag.
Yeah, that's it. 2 stops. And for both of those stops, I'm coming on lap 30. I don't want to run any longer than that. The tricky part is, do I come at the first time around? Do I come early? I think the first time, if we get a green flag stop here, I've got to run the tank dry the first time. The risk is just a little bit too high that we get those yellows. Look at where we're getting the yellows in terms of the runs as well. First one about 20 laps into the run. Second one 25, 30 laps into the run. So we're starting to push towards that number. If I come early now, I get trapped a lap down, race basically over. I've done the short pit strategy, trying to get ahead, trying to be aggressive, and it hasn't played out my way. So the first time through, probably going to run the tank dry. The second time through, I'm pitting early. I'm splitting that last run in 2. I want to give myself the best opportunity of win. I think that's what you've got to do here.
We saw last week when Craig Forsyth took the victory at Auto Club, it was on fuel strategy. He was on fumes when he came around to be able to do his victory.
He was out. He was actually out. I was talking to him.
Yeah. So, so we're looking here tonight more than likely at the tires being more prevalent than the fuel from what it sounds like you're saying.
Yeah, the tires are the bigger part. Obviously, you need to have enough fuel to get yourself home, but tires are just so crucial. Like, it's really, really difficult to hang on to these cars in the long run, so you've got to set yourself up early on terms of that strategy.
90 laps to go next time by. Rick Ravon was the leader this restart over David Cook, and they'll go back to work in the back and forth. Now Craig Forsyth has Charles Teed to work with. He had Nunez in the early going, but Nunez, as documented, looks like he did a little bit of damage repair under that last caution after the contact between himself and Corley. Restarted back in 15th, and oh man, we're going to go 3 wide contact between Cook and Ravon there through turn 2.
I didn't quite see that, but I could tell that they were racing each other very, very hard up in front. And Forsyth's the one that's come away with the lead now. So Craig will want to control this. Craig, again, remember, Craig, if it's a strategy race, Craig's the one that generally cottons onto that the earliest. So if Craig is going for the lead, that means he wants track position.
Well, Rick Ravon, last 2 seasons here at Kentucky, has finished back-to-back runner-up finishes. Last season, one of those runner-up finishes was the guy out in front, the defending winner of this race, Craig Forsyth. So talk about coming into a track with a lot of momentum after the victory last week at Auto Club.
Yeah, so it's huge right now. It's about picking yourself up, making sure you're in this lead pack. For the Joe McAdory and backwards guys in P10, they're sort of out of it right now. They have to organize, and they have to organize in a big, big way. Right now, everyone is just fighting for that track position. I don't know if you want to be leading right now, but I think you want to be leading maybe 10 laps time. And it's about setting yourself up. You're in the right position to take that lead when you need to.
And maybe also setting yourself up for the potential future pit stop if it ends up being under green flag conditions. I mean, we hear it a lot in super speedway racing when drivers are battling side by side. You're thinking, well, you don't want to tear your equipment up. Why are you racing this aggressively? And they say, well, we're setting ourselves up, picking up a spot or 2, so that way we have that advantage when we eventually come to pit road. Is that what we're seeing here as well? Why we're seeing such aggressive racing with still over 85 laps to go?
It's a little bit early for that, but it is still important. You want to make sure that you're attached to this lead group and that you're at least there if you can pick up the pieces. I don't know if you want to be racing for it that hard this early, because IndyCar and super speedway racing, you're talking about looking after the equipment. IndyCar is one of those cars that you have to look after your equipment in. Have a look at Hobson. Hobson's found a groove.
Right now in that 8th position as we're on board with David Cook. He's going to go to the inside there of Charles Teed, who was already double wide with Matt Wagner, so that was 3 wide for a brief moment there on the front straightaway. Up at the front, though, Andrew Wood. Oh, whoa, whoa! Somebody went up and over. Was that Wood? That was Andrew Wood. The 64 cautions out. Rick Ravon and Andrew Wood in a battle for the lead. And Eric Peterson, I think, might have gotten a piece. Yeah, that car's suspension completely skewed as he's crap walking out of turn 4.
This is a tricky one. That's a lot to put together. There'll be a few guys as well at the back of the pack now that'll look at this and go, hey, this is an opportunity for me to stay out and grab some track position, even though you'll be on older tires. Look at Teed's front wing. Look at that car. That thing is messed up.
Got a ton of race cars right now that are badly mangled, pieces missing, suspension skewed. Let's go back and look at what happened. We were on board with David Cook. I kind of missed it. I was looking at the gear he was in, but fans would have gotten a front row seat of the contact just out the windshield of Cook's machine. Let's take now a more in-depth look of what happened. This was obviously for the race lead, and we'll see who the contacts between might have been between Wood and Forsyth. Oh yeah, Wood came up and was not clear. AJ Hobson got a piece of that along with Eric Peterson. My gosh.
A lot of, and the critical thing here is, Seth, that was a lot of good race cars.
Yes.
It wasn't just race cars. It was a lot of winning race cars as well. So that's critical for those guys. There's going to be a ton of fast repairs now burned.
There's another angle at it. Watch how Wood comes up. He's not clear. There's Rayvon. There's Teed. Can't see it up ahead, but Hobson and Peterson get together. We'll focus on those two here on the next replay. So at least 5 drivers with massive amounts of damage, and to your point, going to have to use that fast repair here and now. I believe that Eric Peterson, AJ Hobson, they got contact in different portions of that wreck, and then the both of them slid up into each other in the same portion of the racetrack going into turn 3. Peterson's the yellow machine. There's Hobson in the Valvoline car. Oh yeah, actually, Peterson slides up the track and makes contact with Hobson. The whole rear wing gone on that car.
I wonder whether or not Peterson grabbed the brake straight away. If he's grabbed the brake, that might be why he slid up the track. A whole bunch of guys pitting on this second time by. This is interesting. So we are now just outside of 80 laps to go. You cannot make it. You cannot make it. However, the last stop here will be a splash for those guys that did come down that time by. So there's Charles Teed, AJ Hobson, myself, Jeff Xiong, or Jeff Haisong. I actually asked him how it said. He actually said it's just Jeff Haisong. I've heard it said a few different ways over the last couple of weeks. So Don Days. There's a few guys making critical pit stops on that last time by. Rick Rayvon. There's a few guys that sort of had pit stops forced upon them with their damage. But this will be an interesting strategy play right now. You've got 6 cars that did not stop the tires right there.
He's on board with Andrew Wood. Wow. And we saw with the onboard with Eric Peterson just how much hang time that 64 car got. No knowing where he was going to land. I think there were a lot of drivers that were swerving left and right, hoping they were picking the correct lane. That was not going to be the landing zone for the 64. Going back there on the question about Eric Peterson there, I'm almost wondering if maybe he was so focused in avoiding the wreck, he might not have actually carried the right amount of speed and not slowed down enough to be able to make the corner into turn 3.
Yeah, there's a few things that went on. I mean, if he's grabbed a little bit of damage and it's messed up the front downforce, that's a potential. Look at Teed, for example. Teed was down on the grass, had no front wing whatsoever. So Teed had a very, very issue-laden way of getting through there. So Charles Teed's going to take that fast repair to settle himself back in that race. It's one of the most tricky things in racing is avoiding the wrecks when they come. And this is what I talk about. Get your eyes up. Why? Number one, linking corners together and looking down the track for where the opportunities are going to present themselves. That's so crucial. But number two, wreck avoidance. And setting yourself up for these sorts of races. You get your eyes down the track, you're aware of something's going wrong instant it happens. If you're looking at the rear bumper of the car ahead, you have no idea what's down the track. And you said, Seth, you were looking at the gear in the middle of that one. You weren't actually looking at the cars, and you missed it. And that's exactly the same thing from a race driver's perspective.
Happens so fast, and people have to remember too, you can't see the telemetry here, but these drivers are going anywhere from 210 to 215 miles per hour around this 1.5 mile racetrack. So it is blink of an eye action that's going on, and your reflexes have to be exactly the same. You talked about the faster pairs. Yeah, there's a bunch of them here after this one. Andrew Wood, Charles Teed, AJ Hobson, Rick Ravon, Eric Peterson. They have all taken faster pairs on. So to your point, really fast race cars now have their mulligan taken away, and we haven't even reached halfway in this race. So now we saw some pretty aggressive racing there on that run. Do things settle down now, especially for those half dozen drivers? Because the last thing they want to do is ramp the aggressiveness back up again, put themselves in the same situation, and end their night early.
Well, the other thing is, they're also going to get aggressive and get some track position back. So you'll see Ravon won't change. Ravon will just go for it. That's the kind of driver that he is. So
Green
here we go.
Flag back in the air. Craig Forsyth, the defending winner of this race, gets us back under the green. Matt Wagner, David Cook, Thaddeus McMurray, and Alex Coates were the top 5. A big opportunity here for the 37 of McMurray and the 10 of Coates up inside the top 10 in the point standings. All of a sudden, they have found themselves with good starting track position.
Yeah, there's opportunity for a ton of drivers here, particularly drivers that are around, say, Rick Ravon. Watch what he's doing. Why is he driving the way he is? How is he generating speed? How is he going to make these overtakes happen?
Going to go around the outside of Don Day. Next on his hit list of drivers left, the 312 of Joe McAdory. Rick restarted back in the 14th position. He's already now battling for 11th spot. Just a couple cars behind him, Andrew Wood, Eric Peterson trying to do the same.
You're going to see a lot of swapping around up ahead. Look at Ravon cutting his way through the pack. He's already up to 12. He knows how important it is. But the problem is he's lost the draft to the packs ahead now. He's out in no man's land. So it's going to be critical for him to see how quickly he can catch the pack.
Thaddeus McMurray having some connection problems up here in this lead group in the 4th position. See some slicing and dicing around the Luis Gonzalez, Nunez, and AJ Hobson machines. This is for spots just outside of the top 5 as Hobson pushing up a little bit there, almost into Alex Coates, our runner-up finisher from Pocono.
Gee whiz.
Wow.
So somebody just checked up. Somebody checked up. I had to take avoiding action. So does Gonzalez, and Teed was just there. He had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, I caught that just barely on the left side of our screen going into turn 1. Close to making contact there, and again...
Well, Teed and I made contact.
And again, to the point I made, not even when a wreck takes place, but just the action of the cars dancing around from lane to lane. The movements have to be on a dime. They have to be laser quick.
Yeah, it's wiggling, and again, you're trying to predict all of these sorts of things as well. So remember, we've got cars that are on older tires, cars that are on fresher tires. Everyone's trying to fight. Everyone's trying to take that run somewhere. We talked about that a whole bunch of times, you know?
Matt Wagner picked up his first top 5 last week at Auto Club, was in the conversation for the victory back at Pocono, but contact between himself, Rick Ravon, and Craig Forsyth took him out of the running of that one. He is trying to gain back points as he is 7th in the standings, and he now is out in front here at Kentucky. David Cook, Craig Forsyth going to mix it up for the 2nd spot as we've got, looks like 8 drivers up in this lead group. No, 9 drivers actually. No, actually it is 8 drivers. Charles Teed, after that checkup, he is way back. Actually, it appears
he's got
that
damage.
Yeah, he's got right side damage.
Yeah, that's exactly where he made contact with my car. So that's such a, he has no idea that that's happening on his high side either. There's nothing he could have done, and he's already burned his fast repair. That'll be night over for Charlie.
I mean, what about the visibility for drivers here tonight as well? I mean, we're seeing right now double wide, several rows deep, almost kind of like super speedway racing. I mean, just how much peripheral vision are you getting to see? How many blind spots are there that you have to worry about with these cars dicing back and forth?
Well, all of that happened perfectly in Teed's blind spot. So sort of out his right window, just behind his front tire, there's sort of from basically where the mirror is back. You've got no visibility, and guess exactly where my tires were placed when that all happened. So there's just sort of one big blind spot. The mirrors pick up enough. It's similar to your road car. They ask you to do shoulder checks before you ever change a lane. It's the reason you do that. The problem here is the only drivers who can actually do that in an Indy car are actually the drivers that are in VR. If you're on 3 screens, you don't have that opportunity.
Right. We're on board there with AJ Hobson. He was running behind Thaddeus McMurray, who a couple of laps ago got his left sides down on the apron, started pushing up the track a little. He's now falling towards the back. Alec Coates going to swap from top to bottom. He's going to look for the 4th position on Luis Gonzalez Nunez. And up at the front, Matt Wagner, David Cook, side by side for the top position. That's Wagner on the outside, inside line David Cook. And Craig Forsyth looking to see which lane's going to move out of turn 2.
Here it comes. The run's coming to the top side again. Like I said, I just think this top lane is where all the runs are going to come from all night long. Somebody set a huge dive. I think it was Hobson to the inside just then. Just barely saw that. I'm looking for any movement I can see out of this cockpit because it's so busy right now. Everyone is fighting for every scrap of racetrack. And have a look at Alec Coates. He's doing a phenomenal job. Remember, he's on all the tires.
Right now holding down that 5th position, Alec Coates. There he is, running on the inside line, now moving up about a groove and a half off that yellow line. Wagner and Cook, neither one giving an inch here on this battle for the race lead. Wagner keeps getting the advantage by about half a car length back to the start-finish line, and who knows, at the end of the race, that may be all that matters, because you just have to get to the stripe first before your opponent, and you're taking that checkered flag. Wagner, of course, has been close a couple of times here this season already from getting a victory, and has had circumstances not work out in his favor. It does bear worth mentioning, wow, that was tight between those two off of 4. But with that latest caution, CJ Holloman got one of his 3 laps back, so he is now only -2 to the race leaders. 19 cars running, 18 on the lead lap. I was about to bring up the question of how difficult this particular pit road is to get onto, because these guys are now getting close to, for the top 5 or 6, maybe having to come to pit road under green flag conditions, but I'm not sure if I should ask that, because the way they're racing right now, they may not get the chance.
Yeah, I think a caution's coming. I just don't know where, I don't know when. I need to be in the right spot at the right time. So it's very, very tricky. And everyone's bobbling. Everyone wants to be in the right lane, you know?
Yeah, you talk about running up there on that top side being more comfortable, but, you know, the laws of gravity say that if a wreck takes place on a banking area of a corner, the cars are going to go up. So, I mean, it's kind of a catch-22. Run where you're comfortable, but at the same time, you might have some cars coming up into you if contact's made outside the windshield.
Yeah, it's tricky. Yeah, I mean, you got to pick the right lane. You got to be in the right place at the right time. It's all about timing, because that car, when it does go up there and hit that barrier, it's going to go up in a flash. It's not, these Indy cars, they don't sort of sit in lanes like you would with stock cars, you know? So it's tricky.
Credit to David Cook. He has been able to hold that inside line for the last 5-6 laps. He now has to give way to Matt Wagner, who will clear for the race lead, but David Cook kind of showing that you may not be able to complete the pass down there, but you can certainly keep the battle going for a number of laps. He's going to go back down there to the inside line on Matt Wagner once again through 3 and 4.
It's interesting. So the cars and the way the rip has sort of come to the track, it has actually settled a fair bit out now. So it's not as unsettled on the inside line. The biggest thing right now is aero washes. I'll just experience a whole bunch of that. Have a look at Rick Ravon, though. He's actually closing in on this lead pack. Oh, what a move from Hobson.
Wow.
That was sick. He timed that perfectly. That's
on
perfect
board
driving.
with you. So we saw that move right across the nose. Now I'm watching here. You're fluctuating between 5th and 6th gear. So what's the strategy there on the downshift, upshift?
Again, looking for drive. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm maximizing the power band of the engine. So it's very, the problem is I can't stick it to the inside right now. I'm actually having a lift. You see how quickly the cars sort of close up in on each other. So I'm actually back to 4th at the moment, trying to get the drive from the car to rotate, but at the same time trying to get the car to settle. Whoa!
And there goes David Cook in the 6. I gotta stop going on board with cars, because all of a sudden wrecks are taking place outside the windshield. Caution out. David Cook in what I believe was, again, another battle for the race lead. And you can hear the sigh of relief there from Scott Rankin, who was right in the thick of having to avoid that flipping 6 car. Well, that green flag pit stop didn't have to happen.
Oh, my word. The heart's going, though. I think I'm awake.
Let's take a look and see what happened here with Cook. And he gets a run on Matt Wagner down the back straightaway here. We've seen him do this quite a bit here in the last 15 to 20 laps. And, oh, looks like he tried to clear himself across the nose of Wagner. And Wagner was into the back end of him. The two of them make some pretty extensive contact, and that just shot David Cook straight up to the safer barrier. That's a second wreck we've had up towards the front where it's really just kind of been a game of inches of a driver not being quite clear.
Well, have a look at the move. You saw the onboard footage of my move. I actually didn't think that AJ was clear when he dived down to the inside, but he worked that perfectly. It is inches. It's in the metric system. It's centimeters. It's millimeters. There was nothing in that move, but that's perfect. That's what it's all about. It's knowing exactly where the runner's coming from, how quickly you're approaching somebody, and how exactly big your car is. And he timed that perfectly. And here's just an example of one that's just going wrong. Just barely misses. At the same time, you're fighting with the car, you're fighting with the grip level. When you're racing at this level, you are right on that level of grip. There is no margin for error, or next to no margin for error. Sometimes you've got a little bit of a wiggle that you can catch it, but if you have to bail out of that throttle because something's not working, 3 cars behind you, there's going to be an accident because they can't see you having that moment.
David Cook, his car comes to rest down there on what would be the front straightaway of the Legends Oval in the infield. Driver I'd be a little bit concerned about right now whether he got damaged or not would be Craig Forsyth. We're going to ride on board with him, see if indeed there was contact made. Ooh, it's hard to tell because there is a point where a car, we've seen this before in previous seasons for the Dark Horse Racing Series, where if a car is flipping, there may be a brief moment where you can actually warp through their car and receive no damage. I didn't see any front-end damage there on the front wing or anything for Forsyth, and it looks like he's returned to the track without taking on a faster pair, so it may have been one of those cases.
He may be okay. He may just be okay. You know, there's no issues. So who knows in terms of Forsyth? I mean, Forsyth obviously operating out of Canada as well, so there's a little bit of that connection differential. In the same way that I'm racing out of Australia, you know, the geographical distance actually plays into your connection a lot more than you would realize. Yeah, Craig gets quite lucky in terms of accidents going over the top of him quite a lot, so I think he's actually okay.
Oh, and McIntosh out in front now. 23-lap old tires on the 0-4, but he's going to lead a couple of laps here this evening. We'll
Why
see
not?
if he's going to actually lead us back for the restart. He'll have the fresher tires behind him of Matt Wagner, Craig Forsyth, Alex Coates, and Luis Gonzalez Nunez. It's going to be the completion of the top 5. And CJ Holloman, these cautions continue to aid him again back onto the lead lap. That's another lap added back as the free pass machine. He's now 1 lap down. Got to have 1 more caution, and he will be back on the lead lap. It's going to take me a long time for him to be able to get back in the lead lap, but it might be back in the lead lap when it counts the most.
Yeah, I think he's going to get back to the lead lap at exactly the right sort of time. I think we've definitely got at least 1 more caution in us. So his biggest concern right now is don't lose another lap, stay as far up as you possibly can, grab pit stops where you can. I think we're actually going to have the leader pitting this time by, so McIntosh is going to go to the back.
Now, I know that we ended up obviously having some pit stops come into play, but for the most part, it looked like a lot of the drivers, when they came down pit road, they left in the spots they came down in. And we saw a number of drivers lose track position being involved in the 3rd caution of the evening. AJ Hobson, Rick Rayvon, Andrew Wood, Eric Peterson. The highest driver to get closer to the front on that run was AJ Hobson. He got up to 6th. Rayvon got up to around 7th. Wood was up to 9th and Peterson up to 11th. So they didn't get immediately up to the front again, so it'll be interesting to see here with David Cook, who did manage to stay on the lead lap, though he has taken on his faster pair. He's going to be restarting back in 15th, so while I wouldn't have thought it, just based on the fact that on the first run, saw drivers that were in the latter half of the top 10 or just outside the top 10 up in the top 5 for the first restart, track position here in the late going, it looks like it is more prevalent than I expected.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. Rayvon, look at where Rayvon came from, though, under that last green flag period. He was back about 14th, 15th. He's now back up to P7, so he's halved his position. That means next green flag run, he's got the opportunity to get to lead. It completely only changes how this race is run. For Rick, he's just run a whole bunch of laps out on his own, so he's got to be aware of that. He's got to adjust how he's driving that car and whatnot as well. So, look, this run, I think, is probably going to be the most important over the final run, because this run, you've got so many cars. Just about 3/4 of that lead pack have had to come to pit lane, take their fast repair. So they're now out of sequence. Let's see what happens here.
Yeah, we're going to be getting a restart here with a little less than 60 laps to go, so might be splitting this final run in half in terms of a potential green flag pit stop if we see the green flag from here to the end.
This will be interesting. Remember when those cautions have come, though? I think you've got to run it out. It's just too risky.
Of course, too, we talked about the fact that the tracks have shortened in terms of length. We had the 2.5 mile Pocono Raceway opening up the season, 2 Mile Auto Club last week, and now the Mile and a Half Kentucky. You come to pit road here under green flag conditions, you're definitely going to lose a lap. So to your point, I think you're right. Run the risk of going as far as you possibly can get on fuel. And we're getting the tracks even shorter when we go next week to the Magic Mile at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Oh, it's Matt Wagner. Whoa, what an avoidance there. We need a heart monitor on you, I'm just saying.
Oh, my word. I don't know how many heart attacks I can take tonight.
My goodness, Matt Wagner, hard impact into the inside wall. He came up and got somebody, might have been Hobson or Ravon. It was someone just behind you. And caution's going to fly for the 5th time tonight. Another front runner collected. Our last 3 cautions have been involved in contact up inside of the top 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about track position up there. It's about the lane that you're in. It's about the run that you've got.
And look who's got the lead now. Alex Coates, a runner-up finisher from Pocono. As here's a look at what happened. Well, looks like, well, for lack of a better term, looked like Matt Wagner may have just gotten run over by the 27. Did push up there off a turn, too. We'll get another camera angle here, but so it looked like Forsyth could have cut him a little bit of slack there, but we'll see. It's hard to tell there from that angle. I mean, gap whack could have come into play potentially. The car that did get tagged just a little bit there around the left rear was Rick Ravon. Might maybe have to get ourselves an aerial view to see if there was space between the front of Craig Forsyth and the rear of Matt Wagner. Even then, we may not be able to completely distinguish. Here it is. Oh, nope, there's no gap whack there. There's definitely contact. I mean, to Forsyth's credit, it looked like he did try to lift a little bit there. He was pushing up towards the outside wall. Wagner just must have either felt that car was going around or it was really tight there on exit. Was bailing out of the throttle, and Forsyth just couldn't lift enough.
Yeah, it's just timing. You know, that's all it is. So, look, I mean, I was so worried there that Matt nearly come back up across the track in front of me. I'm curious what's caused that issue. It's hard racing at the end of the day. And remember what we're talking about at the top end of the show when they re-added the fast repair. We're talking at the top end of the show about re-adding the fast repair back to the series. That's critical. Because it means that these guys can race each other. I mean, internet connections aren't perfect. Like I said earlier in the piece, Jeff Highsong, he gets a little bit of packet loss. There's nothing that the drivers can do because they can talk to their ISPs, they can try and get better connections, but ultimately, sometimes it's actually the cables in the ground that have got issues, or there's something going on that they really can't change. From Matt's angle, he actually made contact with the 27. From the 27's angle, he didn't make contact with, what's Matt, the 3, I think? I mean, it changes. You know, replays are different from driver to driver, and that actually reflects the difference in their connections and whatnot as well. Ultimately, the Indy cars are actually one of the worst cars for gap whack-based incidents, and the reason for it is a mix of the speed, a mix of the closing speeds due to the draft, and how close the cars actually need to race against each other. And the other problem is they're so fragile. If a stock car gets a little bit of gap whack in it, it'll drive off. It won't be 100%, but it'll generally be okay. But for an Indy car, that's race-ending damage potentially. So this is literally just the worst of worst circumstances.
Yeah, what about the hitbox too? I mean, is it completely accurate with what you're seeing in terms of the race car and the space it takes up, or is there a little room for error there where it may not look like you're making contact with that particular car, but like you said, with the differences of internet connections and whatnot, you actually are making contact with them?
It's quite close. I won't say that it's perfect. I think the hitbox on most of the cars in iRacing is a little bit bigger, so I think it's blanket across the board. In that the hitboxes are quite close together, but not perfect. So, But the thing is, I'd rather have that. And as a driver, you're not jumping into this, and this is your first ever race, and you've just jumped out of a real life car. These drivers know what these cars look and what these cars feel like and exactly how big they are. Look at what Hobson was able to do a little bit of that 10, 20 laps ago with the move that he made. He knew exactly what the hitbox was. So yeah, even though it doesn't perfectly line up sometimes in the way that the cars interact, the drivers are aware of that. The drivers know exactly where they need to position their car. And look, sometimes I'd have to have a look at that one back because it's not like Wagner and Forsyth to come together. Both of those guys have raced each other for extended periods of times, very, very close together. They know each other very, very well. So they'll talk about that one after the race. I'd want to have another look at that one because it's very unusual that those two drivers will come together.
Well, as you mentioned, fortunate for these drivers, the ability to have that faster pair to fall back on. Matt Wagner obviously using his faster pair at this point in time, working our 5th caution of the evening. We're going to go back green flag racing, looks like with about 51 laps to go if my math is correct. All 19 cars that are running are now on the lead lap. CJ Holloman got that final lucky dog that he needed, so he will be back on the same lap as the leaders. And by my last count, only 10 of our remaining 19 drivers have their faster pair available to them, including the guy that's about to bring us back to green, Alex Coates. He's got Craig Forsyth, Luis Gonzalez-Nunez, Scott Rankin, AJ Hobson. That's the top 5 here as we get ready to go back green. Pretty much everybody stayed out under that last caution. A couple of stragglers near the end of the field came down pit road to maybe top off the fuel tank, but these drivers still know there's one more stop till the finish of this race.
100%. And now, with how late we are, you got to stay out now. There's just no question. It's not even going to be a green flag stop. I think everyone is going to take this the full distance this time.
Talk about the cars feeling light. I mean, there's a lot of banking to be able to lean into through the corners. But then when you're coming to pit road, you transition from the banked turn 4 to a flat apron. I can't imagine with the difficulties we're seeing with drivers out here on the banking with the lightness of these race cars, what they're going to experience if they have to make green flag pit stops here on, let's be honest, what's going to be the money stop.
Yeah, it's left front. You're going to lock that left front no matter what you do. So the drivers will wind their brake bias a long, long way back to try and get it done. Have a look at this move from Forsyth.
Going to take the lead here from Alec Coates, going to clear him before they even get to the center of 3 and 4. Coates will slot back to second. Nunez showing the nose left. Now he jumps to the top. Leaving the door open there for you. Scott sticks his nose in there. He's going to try and go for 3rd place. Maybe be able to get a 2 for 1. Alec Coates alongside of him, following in the draft of Forsyth. Behind them, you got Rick Raybon and AJ Hobson trying not to lose touch with the top 4.
Yeah, so it's really, really tricky, because remember, look at that run that Luis has now got to the top side. He's got enough momentum. I don't think the draft is going to stop it. So Luis has now chopped me off. So now it's, I was going for P2, I was potentially going for the lead. Now it comes back to me.
Kind of a move that a driver would make on fresh tires. You guys out there with about 10 laps on the tires that you restarted there on. I mean, was there enough time under pacing for the tires to cool down to make a move like that? Did it feel the same as if you were on fresh tires? As man, near contact there between Rayvon and Nunez.
Yeah, so Rick's trying to shove the nose in there, get 3 wide and take it away, and Luis just sort of got a little bit tight on the bottom, drifted back up, but it's about being aware of that from my perspective. I knew that was happening, so I gave him more space such that we didn't make contact, because I don't want to make contact now. That puts me at the back. I've now got to go out and battle for track position. I'd rather be right where I am right now and struggling than a little bit further back and, having to come back through, particularly without a fast repair.
3 wide there for a moment off of turn 4. Alec Coates going to be the one to back out of that situation, as he would have been the middle car going into turn 1. Now it's Rayvon versus Nunez for second. Give the spot to Rick Rayvon. And these top 6 mixing it up right now, maybe allowing Jeff Heisong and company to reel them in. Andrew Wood, Eric Peterson, they're only about 0.8 of a second behind this top 6.
Yeah, so we've got to be a little bit careful at the same time. We've got to race because it's about track position. Look at what Forsyth's been able to do. He's got control of this whole pack at the moment. So everyone's trying to hunt him down, trying to look at ways that they can get past him. Rayvon's in a strong position here. Rayvon looks to be quick.
Well, we've seen Rayvon, we've seen Forsyth, and we've seen Matt Wagner all out in front here tonight. No surprise, a bit of deja vu from last season when Rayvon led the most laps, 61 in total, 25 laps led by Forsyth, and 21 laps led by Matt Wagner. We've seen a couple of other drivers take some turns out in front here. Alex Coates just moments ago. David Cook was up front as well. We're seeing some new faces up here at the front tonight, but no surprise really to see the guys that I mentioned that statistically have had the good numbers here at this mile-and-a-half racetrack up here towards the front nearing the end of this race.
Yeah, Kentucky's one of those unique speedways as well. Just with the shape of 3 and 4, you need to have a lot of experience here and a lot of experience with how those lines converge. It's such a unique racetrack. There is nothing else like it currently that exists, because it just creates a really, really weird racing line through 3 and 4.
Forsyth continuing to try and cut the draft behind him. Ravon, big run to the top side there into turn 1. He'll go for the lead side by side for 3 positions here, 3 rows deep. First, third, and fifth all under contest.
An inside line has now come in. The guys that are down there just can't get the tire turned in from the top rope now. So I think you've got to try and get towards the bottom side. You've got to be comfortable down there to get the lead away from somebody. And it's going to be critical here, I think, in about, let's say 10 laps.
We talk about the importance of track position. David Cook and Matt Wagner, who were involved in our last 2 cautions, right now they're mixing it up along with Joseph Morales. This is for the 11th position. They are outside of the top 10. They are currently running about 3 seconds behind the race leader. Man, I mean, if you have an incident early, we've seen how Ravon, Hobson, Wood, they've been able to mount comebacks back up inside of the top 10. But you get involved in a wreck late, it's certainly looking like, with how spaced out the restarts are based off of the leader's ability to go when he wants, certainly looks like you're out of the running for the victory.
Have a look at how this lead pack has now changed. AJ Hobson was quick a little bit earlier on, so was Rick Ravon. They're now coming back to us. So everything's starting to change. But yeah, it's perfectly right. Have a look at Andrew Wood. Andrew Wood's just about to slot into this pack as well.
Yeah, he's got Haisong there with him. Haisong we saw dealing with some connection problems in the early going of this race. He's now about to get back up in this lead pack.
We're 3 wide, we're 3 wide.
We are indeed. That is going to be tight there with Hobson on the bottom. Coates, a little contact maybe there in the middle. And Luis Gonzalez Nunez, way high, wide, and handsome there going into turn 1.
Now which line do you pick? Because Luis will now be a little bit upset. He'll be a little bit annoyed with the way that that's going on. The car's not handling perfect. You're pushing, a lot of pushing. You got to get back to that throttle though. You got to take the run somewhere. Where do you go?
And all of a sudden that top half dozen, it's become about almost a full dozen, as you've got Andrew Wood, he's latched on to the draft now. Jeff Haisong, Thaddeus McMurray, Eric Peterson there as well. Joe McAdory might be able to make it 11 cars in this lead pack. He's about 2/10 off the draft of the 36.
Have a look at Hobson now. Hobson's recovered well.
AJ Hobson looking for the race lead in the 63. Right down in the right rear quarter panel. Whoa! A little loose there, Scott. Nice save on that apron. Oh, again on the apron. And around, caution's out. Long slide there for Scott Rankin. Almost gathered it up. I don't think he hit anything.
No, I didn't. I managed to save it, so kept it all out of everyone's way. That was the whole point. I was trying to fire it down the inside where I knew the cars would be drifting wide coming off the corner, so just caught the apron. A little bit more grip than I was expecting, so I had slightly too much steering lock input. Oh man, you were talking about track position. Well, guess who's now not got any? And this will lock us out of. You can get home from here now. Confirmed.
Yeah, this caution coming out with about 34, 35 laps to go. Go back and take a look. We saw a little tail end of the car wanting to step out with the left sides down the apron.
Yeah, all apron, all driver error. It's just different spots.
I don't know what happened about 8 laps ago, but Don Day is out of this race, so now 3 drivers back in the garage area. There's a look at it going into turn 1. You know, we were talking about you having to wear the heart monitor tonight. Wonder about the 10 of Alex Coates right behind you when he saw your car step out.
He did fantastic. He did a great job, and nobody else piled into that. That's everyone. Remember what I talked about, keeping your eyes up? That's exactly what that was.
We're taking on board here with Alex Coates.
You'll hear him crack the throttle, because he definitely checked up.
And that was double wide, 3 wide behind as well. So great job by everybody
everyone did
not
well.
to make that a bigger incident than it was. I mean, we talk about the speeds of these race cars and everything and how much different they are from a stock car. How about from a driver's perspective, the ability to be able to save the race car in that type of a spin and not make contact with anything? I mean, what are some of the fundamentals of making sure that that car is going to, yeah, spin out, but still be in one piece once the spin is complete?
You've got to manage the throttle and the brakes. So the first and most important thing is to make sure that you're firing it into an area where cars aren't going to be transitioning. A lot of the time, you can't really do that. What's going to happen as well, the car itself compared to a stock car, if you wiggle the car left and right in a stock car, normally you'll actually see, whenever you're turning right, you'll actually see all the weight come off the right front corner of the car in a stock car. Indy cars, very, very stiff, very rigid, single piece body structure. They don't have any of these major sort of anti-roll bars. There is a little bit of anti-roll bar structure because the cars do have to handle a lot of pressure. But because of the construction and because of the design of them, they're very stiff. They transfer. What that means is that the weight gets transferred when the drivers put their foot in the gas, transfers the weight back very, very quickly. When you jump on the brakes, transfers the weight front. It's all nearly instantaneously. The problem with that is any sort of weight transfers with a wiggle, they happen incredibly quickly. You have next to no time. So you need to be aware of what the car is doing, what the car's going to do in the next sort of half a second immediately. That comes to the driver courtesy of the wheel. The better the quality of equipment that you are on in terms of sim racing wheels, the more quickly that you can read something like that. When I first started racing, there's no way that I'm catching a slide like that, ever. That's because I'm in an older style of wheel. The firmware is not really there. The weight in the wheel, a lot of it comes down to the force, because different graduations of force gives you different things, and the more there is a gap between two levels of force, the more you can read it as a driver. Visually, I'm looking for different bits and pieces. I knew that something was going to happen there. The car was going to get really out of shape because I've touched that yellow line. I know that the car's down there. It is an incredibly difficult thing to save. The drivers that are capable of saving these things after a slide are some of the best drivers that you're going to see on iRacing, because you do not get any time whatsoever to do that. I've seen Craig Forsyth say things. Hobson's capable of it. Nunez, Ravon, Wood. Wood is a very, very good driver, very talented driver. He is able to drive this thing in a slight slide sometimes and still keep the car underneath him. He's very, very talented, and it all comes down to quick handiwork, but at the same time, your level of equipment really helps as well.
We're going our sixth caution of the evening here. We're going to be getting a restart somewhere in the vicinity of about 30 laps to go, depending on if the lights go out top the pace car this time or not. 18 drivers still remain in this race. We did not need a lucky dog here under this caution period, but I mentioned Don Day back in the garage area, so he'll finish 19th tonight, joining Gary Corley and Brandon Carl. Craig Forsyth here this evening looking for back-to-back in two different respects. He's looking for back-to-back wins here in the two previous seasons of the Dark Horse Racing Series at Kentucky, but he's also looking for back-to-back victories heading into next week when these drivers will be heading to the Northeast at the Magic Mile New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Going to be an interesting one there before they take an off week and then head west when we'll be at Phoenix. So these drivers here this evening maybe trying to take advantage of the last big racetrack that we're going to be at in terms of length before we head to a couple of shorter circuits in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, New Hampshire is going to be a real difficult race. Like, that is one of the trickiest things that you can do. Near no banking, the track's very, very flat. The walls come up incredibly quick. It's quite a wide racetrack in terms of a short track, but the guys are going to be under the pump trying to race quite close and quite hard there. Short track racing in these cars, incredibly difficult. We talked about the weight transfer. So in the world, the tracks tend to be a lot narrower because, well, you're not carrying as much speed. You don't need as much room. So it's going to be a difficult next couple of weeks. So a lot of these guys will be like, I just want to get a win out of the way. I just want to settle myself in. You know, heading into the back half of the season, I really want to make sure that I've got that win in up my sleeve and I feel comfortable in the car.
Well, you said it. Pit road's going to be a non-factor from here on out. Now you've got what you've got. You got to go to work and try and be the first one back to the checkered flag. 31 laps to go officially here for Craig Forsyth as he gets us back under the green at Kentucky.
Oh, there's cars everywhere scrapping for position in the mid-pack from about P10, a little bit further up than that.
See a pack just up ahead here with Eric Peterson, Joe McAdory, Jeff Heisong's in this mix. Joseph Morales there in the 60 car coming into this race inside of the top 10 in the point standings. He's been very quiet here tonight, has run a clean race, a very quiet race. Right now in that 12th position, he's kept himself out in trouble. One of very few drivers in the field that still have that faster pair intact with still 30 laps to go, still a long ways.
Yeah, the rubbers really come up. The track level is completely different now, the way that these drivers will be attacking it. It's so critical to get your race now. You have to be moving towards the front every single lap. You have to be making some sort of move. You have to take that momentum somewhere. You can't afford to sit back and watch anymore.
Riding on board with Eric Peterson, that bright yellow 36. There he makes the move on David Cook. That's going to be for the 7th position. Now David Cook going to battle back on that top side. There's to your point, that rubber going up the racetrack there, more grip in that middle to outside line. Peterson really having to bail out of the throttle off of turn 4, and that lost him a spot not only to Cook, but Jeff Heisong powered around on the top side as well.
Yeah, so now fighting for that lane choice is going to be changing every single lap. Who wants to be where? Drivers, if they're going to check out where the grip levels are, they've got to do it now, because they're going to run out of time if they try and do it later on. They're not going to be able to test where they think they can get the moves done.
Rick Ravon back to the front after he was involved in a wreck, lost a ton of track position. He's side by side with Craig Forsyth, the 2 previous winners on the season, duking it out for the race lead. You've got Hobson, Wood, Nunez. They're all looking for their first win of the season as well. They complete up the top 5 with Alec Coates. One thing I'm kind of thinking about with that point you were bringing up about the rubber going further up there in the groove, does that mean if you're the 2nd place driver and you're planning on making a move for the race lead, potentially the race win, are you gonna have to do it on the top side? Are there no options on the bottom now?
There will be options down on the bottom. There absolutely will be options. But if you're a smart race car driver and you're leading this race, you're going to shut those options down because it's so much quicker to get down there. So the drivers that are in the lead, for them, ultimately, I think to get this job done, it's going to be a 3-car effort to actually get the lead away from potentially Rick. It's going to have to get a couple guys working together, and I just don't think they exist.
Craig Forsyth gonna leave the middle lane open, and AJ Hobson's gonna stick his nose in there. Ravon was way up high down the back straightaway, so he won't be in the conversation for the race lead, at least off of 4. He's gonna be side by side with Nunez for 3rd place. Forsyth still, though, got his front wing back to the start-finish line, led that lap as we're almost 3 wide for 2nd. Almost contact there, and we've got Coates hard into the wall there on the back straightaway. Caution will wave yet again. There was some contact nearly made between Hobson and Nunez, and I don't know if that played into the contact behind them that sent Coates into the inside safer barrier or not. But Alec Coates, who was having a great run tonight, had that runner-up finish back at Pocono. He's all torn up. I guess if there's any good news, he was one of the drivers that still had the faster pair in his hip pocket. But, I mean, you brought it up there with your spin on the last caution. Now, a lot of track position loss, going to be very difficult to gain it back as we're entering close to 20 laps to go.
Oh, look, yeah, it's... See, it's the tricky thing now is, do I come down, do I grab that fresh set of rubber? Because I'm mired back in this middle of the pack. There's decisions going on at the front. For the guys that's out in front, Craig Forsyth, Luis Nunez, AJ Hobson, Rick Ravon, all the way down to about 8th. It's a no-brainer. You stay out here. You're not giving up any track position. But the guys further back, they've got to watch who's going to come to pit road, who's going to throw caution to the wind, who's going to do something wacky. Oh, it's Ravon that does the wacky.
Yeah, this is, well, I'm almost wondering if he might be coming down to check and see if he's got any damage, because it was Rick Ravon who had the contact with Alec Coates. This is a 1.5-mile racetrack, and I feel like every time we have a race, doesn't matter what type of car it is, at a 1.5 miles, we always talk about drivers wanting the same piece of real estate based off of their entry or exit off of the corner. And I think that was the case there. Ravon, he was turning down low to be able to pick up the draft of the car in front of him down the back straightaway. Coates was pushing up off of turn 2, and that's how the two of them made contact.
It's so narrow, and that car ahead of you, everyone's always going to squabble for it. The IndyCar's so much more drive in a straight line, so much more draftability, so that's so critical to pick up who you're going to follow down the straightaway. If you haven't got anyone, you're going to disappear out the rear view. But then it gets to the corners, all of that downforce that you were lacking in the corner following the car behind, all of a sudden you get all that back because you're running out on your own. So it's about playing with the groove, playing with where you want to be at the right point in time. I think Forsyth's going to be vulnerable here on this restart. I think Nunez can get to the front, but I've been watching Luis Gonzalez Nunez here. He's been having issues in the middle of 3 and 4. He's trying to get back to the throttle quite aggressively. He's pushing the car straight up the track. So he is struggling with that race car. Now, I haven't seen him on fresh tires. I haven't seen him very, very recently, but he could be struggling. That could trigger off a chain reaction in behind him because he dives down and he tries to swipe up towards the wall to try and hang on to as much momentum as he possibly can. There's anything could happen now as we're inside 20 to go.
Maybe not realizing it, I think that inside save for Barra on the back straightaway, it might have played a huge part into saving a couple of drivers' race right there. Normally, when we see a driver spin down to that inside save for barrier, they shoot right back up the racetrack towards the outside save for barrier, but it kind of looked like that save for barrier grabbed the front nose of Alec Coates' machine, and with kind of pulling him in, it stopped his momentum and kept the momentum of him spinning going forward down that apron, not sending him back up into traffic. So that wreck could have been a lot worse and involved several more drivers. A little bit of an MVP moment there for the safer barrier, making sure that we didn't have more torn up race cars, and a couple of those race cars could have been ones that didn't have that faster pair mulligan still left.
Yes, there's going to be a few different things that are critical here. Obviously, track position, we talked about one, picking the right lane at the right time. Ravon's going to have to get aggressive. I don't see any other better way around it. Cook's a long way back now as well, but he's been a long way back for a lot of this race now. I don't know. Have a look at your top pack. Your top pack is some of the best drivers on IndyCar on the sim. These are amazing drivers. Craig Forsyth's a huge name. Luis Gonzalez Nunez, huge name. Hobson, he's good in the right circumstances. He's been making some great moves so far tonight. A little bit underrated in terms of this lead pack. Andrew Wood, I talked about his level of car control in the extreme. Andrew Wood knows this car inside out, 5 kinds of sideways. But so does everyone else here. They've all got this level of talent. I think we're in for probably one of the most interesting and fun 20-lap shootouts that you're likely to see on the sim.
And a bit of a question mark on something that's just developed here under this caution period. Matt Wagner was on pit road for the last 3 laps, and it looks like he may actually be done for the night. Our pole sitter right now being scored not even on pit road, not in the server,
he's done.
And
he's
gonna
done.
be finishing in the 18th position. So you got to wonder what went on there.
I think on that last restart, I think it was a check up ahead of him, and he just didn't check up in time because he went backwards very, very quickly after that. So it was something initially under that last getting back to green. So
didn't have the faster pair. He'd already used it earlier on in this race, as we saw a couple of cautions ago. So, boy, another tough night for the driver of the 3, Matt Wagner. He's going to be scored in the 18th position. 2 races in, at 7th in the point stands, 43 points out. And now going to continue the free fall here. He'll look to recover next week at New Hampshire. But, you know, I know that obviously it's still a long season. These races are all at speedways. They're not at road courses, so a lot of positions and a lot of points to be gained. But, I mean, 3 races into a year, and you've got 2 DNFs already outside of the top 15. It's going to be a tough hill to climb for Matt Wagner.
very, very tough, and it was particularly with the. I'm going to bring up that level of the competition all night long because it's so relevant, and you can't afford to have a bad race. You're going to maybe one and get away with it. But if you think that you've got any hope of winning a championship, you can't really afford to have a bad race. Sometimes you just got to take a P10, you know, and just get back out there and turn laps. But I would say for Matt, there's terminal damage or near terminal damage. It would be releasing him from the pit and being allowed to drive, but it would be so close to terminal, it wouldn't be funny. That's not the Matt Wagner that we know. And yeah, he's not really got much of a choice.
Top 4, top 5 gonna break away here on this restart. Forsyth side by side with Nunez. Nunez couldn't get the momentum he needed off of turn 2. Going 4 wide. There was contact between Hobson and Nunez. Somehow they all keep it going in the right direction.
Has Andrew Wood come away with that?
I don't know.
Who's got that
man.
spot?
He is gonna get that. Oh my goodness. Oh, Hobson almost got to the left rear quarter panel, almost into the left rear quarter panel of Wood. You think these guys realize there's less than 20 to go?
Oh, they know. They're very, very aware. There'll be all the niceties will be thrown out of the window, but these guys are aware of that. They know that it's just tight racing at this point.
Now side by side for the lead. Andrew Wood on the top side, edges ahead of Craig Forsyth going into turn one. Nunez, Hobson side by side for third. Nunez going to push up the track a little bit there, as is Wood. So give the advantage now to Forsyth and Hobson on the inside line.
Oh man, it's so difficult because the car's starting to play. Remember what I said about Luis Gonzalez, Nunez pushing up the track? Now I'm starting to experience that. Different drivers. Hobson's struggling, I know, at the moment.
David Cook is now up to the 6th position, but it may be too little too late for him. A driver that's been out in front for a good portion of the early section of this race. He is currently running a 2.5 seconds behind this top 5, only 15 laps to go. Certainly he's going to need another caution to come out to be able to get back into the conversation.
And look at Andrew Wood, he's just been abandoned on that top lane. He's getting no support up there. So he's gone from racing for a lead. In fact, I think he did cross the stripe on one lap in the lead. And now he's back.
He did indeed. And you know, another thing we have to bear in mind here as well is we don't have overtime green-white checkers in the Dark Horse Racing Series. We could end up finishing this race under yellow, so these guys have to be very careful of the timing of when they want to make their moves, especially if they're for the race lead. They also have to bear in mind of where they want to be positioned in case anybody up at the front makes contact, because they want to have themselves an escape route.
Oh man, it's getting tight. I'm going to focus.
All right, so I'll let you go to work there as Scott right in the middle of this. Now going to slot in behind Hobson. That's 3rd and 4th place. Andrew Wood is now exited for the moment back into the 5th position. David Cook, I think, is now reeled in this top 5. He was able to break away from 7th place on back, and he might have a shot of getting up here for this race win. 3 wide again. Scott on the top. Middle line Hobson. Inside line prevailed for Nunez, at least here off of turn 4. He's going to get a run on Craig Forsyth for the top position. 11 laps to go here at Kentucky as they continue to mix it up for the top half dozen. Nunez got a little close with those left side tires to that apron through 1 and 2. Craig right now, I think his strategy, just run it as low as he can. Take the shorter way around the racetrack. Leave the top side open if somebody wants it, but they're having to take the longer way around the racetrack. So right now, almost kind of, if I have to coin the phrase, almost pulling a Nick DeGroot. We saw DeGroot do this so many times when he was out in front at a 1.5 mile racetrack.
Oh, absolutely, and DeGroot was really the master at it as well. He was so good at picking when to get to the bottom and how to control it. I mean, there was one race I was able to take it away from him down there, but other than that, Nick DeGroot's, he's just known for being able to hang on to this thing when he needs to hang on to it.
See Nunez there up on the top side again. Now, if Nunez is able to time the run off of turn 4, make a move like that on the final lap, he could be able to get the momentum enough to get Craig Forsyth at the start-finish line. He's definitely not going to be able to completely pass him for the position. It's going to have to come down to about half a car length or so.
Oh man, and now I get abandoned on the top side. You can't get to the top. You got to get back into the bottom. You got to pick up that giraffe lane.
So if you're Craig Forsyth,
didn't quite get there to shut the door.
So for the Craig Forsyth machine, I mean, is there anything you can do out the rear view mirrors as far as controlling the draft, controlling who gets the run, stalling out the lane?
Yes. Yeah, he's doing exactly that. He's reading where the runs are coming from and making it difficult for Nunez to pick up where the run will be.
Contact between Hobson and Cook. Cook's right front came up off the racing surface for a moment. Little gap black there. They keep the fenders on it. We still stay green, but we nearly just had our 8th caution of the evening. 3 wide for the lead. Nunez up the middle. Now to the bottom, Hobson. Rankin up on the top side as Forsyth continues to watch this battle going on in his rearview mirror. Laps ticking away, 6 to go. Now Hobson up there on the top side. He tries to pitch down on the right rear fender of Forsyth off of turn 2. And
you gotta get to the lead. You gotta do it now.
Don't look now. This top 6 may be joined by a bunch of others. Eric Peterson, Rick Ravon, Jeff Heisong. They may have enough laps to get up here. We could have as many as a dozen race cars in the hunt for this win with 5 laps remaining. Nunez pinning it down there on the bottom. Hobson now in the middle. He swaps down to the inside line again. Single file, top 3, top 4. Wood jumps up to the top. Cook jumps up to the top. Close quarter there between Rankin And Nunez for that second position. Hobson gonna pinch the 14 down off of turn 4. There's no room being given here now with 4 laps remaining. And on board with Rick Ravon, this is what he's seen out the windshield, and the gap is rapidly closing. It was about a second and a half 5 laps ago. It is now down to half that, 7/10 of a second, and he's got a bunch of drivers that want to join the party as well. Nunez is going to go to the lead. We saw so many times last season, especially at the speedways. Luis Gonzalez Nunez had a strong race car, capable of winning. Circumstances would always seem to not work out in his favor, whether it was getting involved in a wreck, whether it was making a pit road mistake. Tonight could be the night he gets his first checkered flag here in the Dark Horse Racing Series, but Forsythe's not done. He's up on the top side. He led that lap with 3 miles left to go here in the Bluegrass State. Wood's gonna jump to the top side 3 wide. Rankin's gonna give him the draft he needs down the back straightaway. Now Hobson looks 3 wide, 4 wide, almost looking 5 going into turn 3. Nunez still's got the bottom. Run comes through the middle for Forsythe as Nunez pushes up. Forsythe clears for the top spot. White flag in the air. 1 lap to go here at Kentucky. Wood now is for second on Nunez, close between those two going into 1. Who gets the advantage? Who gets the run? Who can make the move on Forsythe down here through 3 and 4? Nunez now jumps to the top. Can he stay to the right rear? Hops into the apron. He slides. Craig Forsythe off turn 4. He'll keep them all at bay. Craig Forsythe goes back to back here at Kentucky Speedway. Craig Forsythe, second win in a row here this season, second victory in a row at Kentucky. And Craig Forsythe, who was on the losing end of a battle for the race lead in the season opener at Pocono, he has definitely gained back a number of the points he lost in that first race with a victory last week at Auto Club, and now he'll get to burn it down again here tonight at Kentucky Speedway. No fuel strategy needed here tonight. It was all about controlling that draft for car 27. We'll see if Scott's got his breath back or not. Right in the thick of that thing at the end. I don't know how all you guys, all you top 5 or 6, kept the fenders on those things.
Dude, we were 4 wide at one point with about 3 to go. Like, that was insane. That was amazing racing. I actually ended up making contact with about 4 to go with David Cook, and there's nothing in that. It's just so difficult, and it's about going for the right piece of track at the right time. Have a look at Nunez got there. He got the nose ahead, but they were 4 wide. He had no support. He had no one trying to chop down Craig Forsythe and pinch him off. It was just difficult racing. Lanes and exactly where they were disappeared in a heartbeat. How many times all night long did you see that? These drivers have got to predict where the runner's going to be, where they need to place the car all night long. And I think Forsythe put himself in the right spot at the right time about 40 laps ago.
And I'm almost wondering, too, Craig Forsythe led a good portion of this race, especially in that final run. He knew what his car was capable of doing, running the bottom and keeping everybody behind him, especially off of turn 4, back to the start-finish line. Luis Gonzalez Nunez, when he got to the lead, I think that was for the first time tonight, so he was put in a position he wasn't all that familiar with. He was on the bottom off turn 4. Forsythe was able to swing around him on the top side. Nunez couldn't keep him at bay. Maybe that experience factor played the advantage for Craig Forsythe.
Yeah, look, I mean, you can say the experience factor, it may have played its part, it may have been involved in that, but really, it's not. You look at that whole breadth of that top pack, all of them have the experience, all of them have the capability there. Forsythe knows where he needs to position the car. Ravon would know where he needs to position the car. Cook, Hobson, Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Luis has led so many laps at so many different tracks and so many different series. He knows what he needs to do to get that move done, and he's got so close. It just kind of went away from him. Look at Andrew Wood, who was up in that top fight as well. He couldn't quite get the move done. It was sanded everywhere. There was one spot there I wanted to shove the nose 5 wide, but I'm just like, I can't do that. It's too risky. We don't get through this corner, and whoever walks out the other side is the winner.
Look at our finishing results here with the top 3, the podium finishers that we'll be talking with in just a few moments. Less than 0.2 of a second from Forsythe to Nunez to Andrew Wood. Heck of a run for you here tonight. After that spin, a great comeback run there. Scott in fourth. Hobson bringing it home in fifth. Rick Ravon, we saw him come to pit road late. He battled back to get sixth. Eric Peterson, seventh. Coates, after he brought up the last caution, didn't he? I think he brought up the last yellow flag, and he was able to
Yep.
battle back for eighth. Morales, he's going to stay in the top 10 in points with a ninth place run tonight, and Thaddeus McMurray going to bring it home in the 10th position. But just about everybody that you look at here in the running order at one time or another was pretty much towards the back, had to work their way back to the front. A lot of changing of positions during the course of tonight's race, and some of the drivers here that did not get the finishes they were looking for. David Cook back there in 15th. Charles Teed, he actually finished this race back in the garage area. He'll finish 17th. Matt Wagner, we documented back there in 18th. So there's a number of drivers here in the early going of this season. They need something to go right for them here starting next week at New Hampshire if they're going to be in that championship battle by the time we get to Indianapolis.
Yeah, it's build a season. It's settle yourself in. It's look at the long haul. Sometimes with some of these moves, it's take a P3. Take a P3 when you can get that. Don't go for the win. Why? Take those points, man. That's a huge bank of points. Yeah, Craig Forsyth's going to jump out there and grab a win, but he's not going to be able to do that every single week of the season. Look at how close the racing was tonight. Look at how many times the positions swapped. Guys that we thought were potentially big favorites had incidents, went all the way to the back, had to fight their way back through. It's not as straightforward at any stage of the race. You've got to be in the right spot at the right time.
Yeah, wins are great, but as we've mentioned, with this type of point system and the way that it works with Indy cars, it's whoever accumulates the most points at season's end. So to your point, Scott, points, the big picture if you go for that championship trophy. Let's see if we can talk with some of our podium finishers here tonight, see if they've caught their breath as well. Let's see if we can get the guy that brings home P3, Andrew Wood. Andrew, Scott, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got a copy?
Gotcha.
Man, I'll tell you what, a nerve-wracking race here tonight as we got firsthand with Scott doing the driving and broadcasting duties. Man, I'll tell you what, though, I mean, you had a strong race car up there at the front, saw some contact there when you were in the race lead. You mount a comeback to get up there to third, but I mean, just how do you set up a move there in the closing stage of this race with all the shifting of lanes we saw amongst the top six?
It's a hard question to answer, really. Just kind of going for whatever spots are open for the most part. Did a lot of experimenting in the mid pack at the start of the race, just trying to see what kind of lines work out, and they sometimes worked out and they sometimes didn't. So I just kind of had to pray that I would stick to my guns and not do anything different and see what would turn out for the best. And it seems that was the best way to go.
Let's talk about perhaps what's one of the most difficult things, and it's choosing that right lane at probably the right time. I actually really, I've always valued your input as a driver. Andrew is one of the best short track races you are likely to see on the sim. But when you come to these mile and a halves, the way that you set yourself up for the race, the way that you read the race, it's going to be so different. What particular things are you looking at to try and set yourself up for the win with the draft lanes, with this particular setup? Because it wasn't full throttle the whole way around.
Yeah, that's one thing that was kind of different from what I'm used to, is that the setup was definitely trickier. There wasn't a lot of rotation mid corner that would kind of push you out to the wall, so you kind of had to set yourself up on entry and just kind of see what the best method was to get through the corner. So for me, it was just kind of finding the line on the outside and just finding the right speed to get through the corner that wouldn't be inhibited by any sort of dirty air. So it took me a long time to really get comfortable with it. And as for the time to do it, it's tough because you get a caution with 4 to go and then you're stuck there wherever you are. So you kind of want to make it early, but you don't want to make it too early to show your hand. I actually did that at one point. I kind of made my move a little early just to see if it would work, hoping that nobody was paying attention. And of course, I just got a third place there, so it wasn't really the best time to do it. But I just kind of was going for whatever I could go for at that point for the last 3 laps.
You talked about the cautions. I want to just kind of go off that topic just a little bit more because we saw at certain points of this race, we were bringing up the possibility of this race being two stops to the finish. And then we end up getting to one fuel stop to the finish of potentially making that under green flag conditions. With the timing of the cautions here tonight, how much did they play into the moves you made at the beginning, middle, and then obviously at the end of the race?
Well, of course, you saw I was part of one of the cautions, which I kind of take blame for. I didn't really realize there was a three wide situation there, and I was trying to come back up high into three, and I didn't really predict the overspeed of the car behind me. So that one was kind of on me, and I wasn't, I wasn't too happy about that from my own standpoint. Um, but I was able to get the faster pair and stay on the lead lap, and from there I realized that I needed to kind of take it down a notch, just for my own driving because I was a bit aggressive to get to the front after the start of the race. So um, just based on the cadence of how the race went, it seemed like the cautions were coming at a decent clip. It wasn't one of those races where there's a ton of cautions at the start and then it just kind of thins out. It seemed like people were very aggressive, just driving from behind, watching them. So um, I kind of was saving fuel initially and trying to play with my lines then. And then when it got to be game time for the end of the race, that's kind of where I made my move and was trying to get up towards the front as close as I could. Um, and then getting to the lead again was tricky. But at that point, with 20 to go, the last caution, I just wanted to put myself in a spot that would get me the podium, and I achieved that.
Well, a heck of a run for you here tonight, Andrew. A good comeback run too. After you mentioned the trouble you ran into, third place under the lights at Kentucky. Congratulations. We'll now give you the opportunity to thank some sponsors and do some shout outs.
Yep. Just want to thank everyone that raced tonight and all the guys that put this lead together. I'm kind of on a part-time effort right now, but it was happy. I was happy to get a good finish for the one race that I'm in here. We'll see what the rest of the season holds for me.
That's Andrew Wood, your third place finisher here tonight at Kentucky Speedway. Congratulations once again, and as you said, part-time schedule. So looking forward to seeing wherever we see you take the green flag next.
Yep. I'll see you guys then.
Let's see if we can now get our second place finisher here tonight, Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Hey, Luis, it's Scott and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got it. You.
Man, I'll tell you what, so close to getting that checkered flag. At one point, you had the 27 cleared for the race lead. I mean, what if you could go back and you could do something different? What would it be to keep him in your rearview mirror? Because I think you had the lead there with about 2 or 3 left to go.
I don't know. I have many people back me, try to do something different. So I very, I don't have a view on my right side. So if what you the question said, if he thinking about that, I maybe to check my right side because I saw I have at least one car to put my car up close to Craig, but I didn't. So I thought maybe Craig is super close to me. So no, it wasn't. So that's the only thing. I'm really happy. Actually, I enjoy a lot. I'm really happy for the result. Doesn't matter if it's second or third. Was so intense. Was a great race on the end. Unfortunately, we have a lot of yellow flag. That's the reason is a little bit low race, but I feel happy. I feel happy. I'm really happy for the second place. I thought it's gonna be I don't know, fifth place because we have a group the six. So, but very happy, super happy.
In terms of things, Luis, I mean, you talk about obviously backing yourself up, knowing exactly how much space you had. I mean, it was just a good race. I saw a lot of swapping of lanes. You didn't want to give me any space. You definitely wanted to come. We went side by side for what was it, like 10 laps in a row? We were both trying to grab the sort of the space, and it's about timing yourself. I mean, you picked that run off just about perfectly. You think?
Yeah, actually, it's really tough going to down. I think about to just go down because it's the best way to try to catch or try to do something. But yeah, I saw many wheels close to my right wheel, front wheel. So it's really intense. It's really I thinking about, okay, doesn't matter. If we go to for the Greg or something like that, so it's happened. It's his race, but yeah, so super close. Everything super close. Everything. I don't like to go down with, especially with this car. I feel a lot of things with my wheel. Like feel like to lose a lot. Um, but my line is on the top on the wall. So, but yeah, I at least my thing is gone down. Try to catch Greg. I didn't expect to Greg leave the position, because I start to squeeze down to Greg. But yeah, he's squeezing my mind. But in the replay it wasn't. So, but anyways, I really enjoy a lot. So this is good.
Yeah, Luis, obviously bringing it home in one piece, second place, and didn't have to use a faster pair. I think by my last count of the drivers that finished the race under power, you were one of only a half dozen that didn't have to use their faster pair in this event. We saw a lot of the wrecks take place up at the front of the field, which meant that anybody behind had to take evasive action. There were a couple of incidents on the back straightaway with a lot of cars taking and moving into different lanes in front of oncoming traffic. How difficult was it here tonight to keep your focus razor sharp to avoid those incidents when they occurred?
Was really difficult, really difficult. I when I got the touch with somebody else, I don't remember who did. I don't remember. Maybe it was my fault or no. I don't know. And I got a repair with 50 seconds. I said, okay, it's a long race. Still in the we're still here. So I thinking about, okay, let's do it. Go back and just pray to don't have any wreck. So I really, when I saw the big wreck with Raybon, Good, and every something else, I said, okay, let's stay outside. But I save for the same reason my fast repair. I save it. I prefer to save it, do my repair for my back wing was, and try to save it for something big, but wasn't. So I didn't use it. I keep it on the end. But yeah, that's a very it's because you know what, the track is so difficult. It doesn't matter if it's the new or the legacy, is super difficult track. It's really especially in the qualifying. So the qualifying, I thought that the tires is gonna be have a lot of grip, but in the second lap is wasn't. It's going to the wall faster, and especially in here. So the what I say, Andrew, the middle line is the best to go, but I don't know how the people go down and come in. I don't know. It's taking me. What I say, Andrew, it's taking me to a lot to keep what is the right line, and try to don't feel that thing when I feel for 140 laps, like the car start to lose on the back, like a sleeping. It's like, oh my god, it's gonna be loose, it's gonna be loose, it's gonna be, no, it never happens. But I feel that thing and all the race. So, but was what I said, this was intense. Was a good result, especially for the last week. I got a spin, and I got uh, black flag anyways. And but yeah, let's see what is the next one.
Yeah, you pick up a lot of spots in the point standings here tonight, up 10 positions now. You'll be 11th in points going into New Hampshire next week. So, a lot of momentum on your side with a great run tonight. And now, Luis, we'll give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
Cool. Yeah. I want to say thank you to my sponsor, simracing247.com, to Darren, the guy support me everything. I want to say thank you to HyperX Yes TV. I want to say thank you guys for amazing broadcasting today, and let's keep going together. And I want to say thank you for my family in my country. They watch me in the big screen. They put the big screen in the living to watch me, and try to see if it's the good results. My mom said she screened a lot for the last 2-3 laps to go. So uh, this race, this second place is for my father and my mother. So thank you so much for supporting me. Gracias por estar ahí y por verme. So yeah, let's see next week. New Handship is a good track. I like the short track, especially with this car. So let's see if it's have a good race. And yeah, see you next week. Thank you so much, guys.
Well, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, your runner-up finisher here tonight at Kentucky. He'll look to finish one position better next week at the Magic Mile of New Hampshire. Congrats, Luis, and good luck next week.
See you next week, and thank you so much.
All right, let's go down to Victory Lane. Second week in a row that we're going to be talking with Craig Forsyth as he picks up the checkered flag here tonight. Craig, it's Scott and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
You betcha, guys. Hey.
Well, man, I'll tell you what, you had a lot going for you here tonight statistically. Defending winner of this race from a year ago, defending winner from last week at Auto Club, but man, had to fight for it there at the end. Had about 5 different drivers breathing down your neck. You had to control the draft. At one point, actually lost the race lead and was able to battle back on the top side off of turn 4 to get it back and hold it till the end. But I mean, a lot of drivers here tonight had some mistakes, may have made a little bit of contact. You drove a relatively clean race, but it couldn't have been as easy as it looked.
No, I mean I'm never happy when I'm win a race with any type of incident or anything that I was involved in, and I think I'm still not sure on the one the first one there with Andrew, and I think it was Rick on the outside there. I'm not sure if I came down or if Andrew came up, and all I know is that suddenly Andrew was going off my front nose. And then on the second one, I think it was Matt and David, and suddenly David was flying over top of my car, and two incidents that somehow my car got through completely unscathed, yet I already had an 8X. So that was two incidents on me, and then the one with Matt was a weird one because all of a sudden he started turning, and I'm like, I don't have any type of incident mark on my screen, but it's like his car totally reacted like I hit him. And then even watching in the replay, it's like on my screen we didn't touch, but his car totally reacted like we did. So that's on me. But that was unfortunate. So I'm never happy when getting the win is awesome, but getting it with sour feelings of others doesn't make me happy.
I mean, it's tough in the world of IndyCar because we talked about it. Those gaps, they open and close within a fraction of a second. It's all about predicting. And sometimes you just predict wrong. The level of grip's not there. None of this is ever intentional. When you're racing these cars this close together for this number of laps, it's just gonna happen. That's just racing.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, you're making decisions in tenths of a second, and sometimes a tenth of a second still isn't fast enough. With how fast these cars are and how fast they are at this track, and how much we can change direction from one line to the next. I mean, I think half the field led the race at some point, didn't they? It was a crazy race.
Now, we were talking about the fact that during the course of the beginning of this season, we started out at the big track of Pocono. We got to a relatively smaller racetrack at Auto Club. Tonight, we bring it down to the 1.5 mile in Kentucky. We're getting even smaller with the mile racetrack next week in New Hampshire, but you were in the conversation for the victory in the season opener, back-to-back wins here in races 2 and 3. So, I mean, what's the confidence level heading into, we'll call it a short track at New Hampshire?
I don't believe I'm normally good at that track. I'm usually the flatter the oval, the less good I am at it. So that's Milwaukee's my one of my Achilles heels. So we'll see. It's nice to have made up for the first race, I think. But I mean, it's early in the season. It's good that we're keeping everyone is nice and tight. I think I assume in the points it's really tight at this point, which that's good for everyone. It's we've got a lot of races left to go. I want to do my best, of course, but I mean, the competition level in this field this season is through the roof. I mean, well, you saw Andrew came in. I mean, even Scott, he's doing amazing, and then Luis has stepped up his game by leaps and bounds. He's doing so well. Then you've got Rick and David, Rick, David, Matt, for that matter, is like all those guys. I think AJ Hobson's was in contention for the race most of the race. Like the competition level this season is really tough.
Yeah, obviously, as you mentioned, the point standings, think they're close. They are close. 5 points separation going into New Hampshire between you and Rick. Going to be a lot of fun to see that continue on as we're getting ready to close out the first third of the season. But Craig, obviously, a lot of momentum on your side here in the beginning portion of the year. We've seen you for the last couple of seasons in a part-time capacity. Looking like right now certainly going to be a contender for that championship further on down the road. We look forward to seeing if he can keep it going. But now we're going to hand the mic over to you for some Victory Lane. Thank you, sponsors, and shoutouts.
Hey, so yeah, the move to Sunday definitely helped me. That's for sure. I mean, I got to thank the series sponsors. I mean, Troy Lee Designs, 4D Racewear, both good sponsors for the league, keeping us going. Both our broadcasters. I mean, you guys over in the booth and at FRN, both you and ESTV doing the rebroadcasts. And then I got the car sponsor. That's Jim over at 4D Racewear. He's not just the league sponsor. He's also the team sponsor for the car. And he's got some injuries right now, so he hasn't been able to drive as much as he'd like. But so it's good to at least get one of the cars out there so it can be on the track getting some sponsorship time.
Craig Forsyth, your winner here tonight. Back-to-back victories here in the early portion of the 6th season of the Dark Horse Racing Series, as his latest is here tonight in the Bluegrass State at Kentucky. Congratulations, Craig. Go and enjoy this victory, and we look forward to seeing if maybe you can make it 3 in a row next week in the Northeast New Hampshire.
Almost certainly try. Thanks, guys. I'll stay safe, and I'm going to go have a bourbon.
Craig Forsyth going to continue his celebration here tonight at Kentucky. Scott, you gave me the milkshake reference before we even went green. I waited till the end for the crystal ball to come out. The last 2 races at Kentucky, the driver that has led the most laps has led 61 in total. Rick Ravon last year and Craig Forsyth tonight in this one. So I'm pulling out the crystal ball. I'm making a prediction. Next year, Kentucky's on schedule. The most laps led will be 61 laps.
I'm going to message the admins immediately after this broadcast. Kentucky has to stay on the schedule. We have to test a theory.
We do. This must be done for science.
Man, I tell you what. Go ahead, Seth.
I was going to ask you, I mean, next week, New Hampshire, we heard from Craig Forsyth, not a whole lot of confidence going into that particular racetrack. So does that open up the door for some of these other guys that we've seen running up at the front that still haven't gotten that checkered flag? I mean, I'm looking at AJ Hobson, who had a good run tonight, Nunez, who had a good run here tonight, even a couple of drivers that didn't exactly have the finish that showed just how good of cars they had, like David Cook and Charles Teed. We know Teed was a couple of seasons ago, he had a victory at Iowa, so he knows how to get around the shorter distance racetracks.
But Iowa's such a different track, so much more banking, so much more open. It's going to be a lot of it's going to come down to qualifying. A lot of it's going to come down to, it's probably going to be a caution, not field race, but cautions are going to be very, very important to how the race develops. Same as sort of tonight, I'm not expecting a green flag pit stop, to be perfectly honest with you. That's just the nature of the racing that goes on at New Hampshire. Not a lot of overtaking. So qualifying, there'll be a lot of drivers who'll spend a lot more time focusing on qualifying compared to their race. Normally they may have like a 10%, 90% split in terms of the time, with 90% on the race set. They'll do a few practice qualifying attempts. Well, next week at New Hampshire, they'll be running. They'll probably have 10, 20 cracks at the qualifying, because it's just that important. It's just so critical to your race to start up the front, because then you're clear of all the chaos. But then again, tonight, all the chaos happened up front.
A former winner from this season, Rick Ravon, winning the season opener. His 6th place performance here tonight, enough to keep now 2-time winner Craig Forsyth at bay for the points lead for now. 5 points, the difference between those two going into New Hampshire. At what portion of the season, does it even start as early as next week, do these two start keeping tabs on where each other are on the racetrack, thinking, it's still a long ways to go, but we may be the two to settle this out once we get to Indy with that championship hanging in the balance?
Well, I mean, Craig will be doing it straight away. I don't know how much Rick will be aware of it. I know that he does like to keep a lot of track of the points. Personally, that's just, he loves to make himself aware of the situation at large. Rick will be going for wins. I don't know how aggressive he will drive, but he tends to be one of the more aggressive drivers out there. He tends to try and get the moves done. So that'll be probably race as usual for Rick. For Craig, it'll be damage limitation mode. So he will probably drive more with a championship focus. He'll try and stay out of the chaos. Will probably be his best bet next week if he can keep the car clean. He can take a random strategy ticket. He'll probably, that's Craig's strength, is his ability to take some oddball strategies and take them somewhere. So keep an eye out for that from Craig. I'd expect to see him throwing himself off sequence early on. Just, he's got to do something different if he's not confident next week. So that might be the way to go.
Well, we've had 3 really exciting races to open up the season. We had that great battle in the closing stages at Pocono. We had the fuel strategy finish last week at Auto Club, and here tonight, a nail-biter right down to the end and a thriller at Kentucky. Cannot wait to see what New Hampshire has in store for us next Sunday night. Hope you guys will all join us for that. Scott, it's been great to have you back in the booth, not only in the broadcast capacity, but also in the driver capacity, because, people may not recognize this, but I think that maybe one of the best things that we got treated to here tonight was not just the information you were able to give to us, but the times when you weren't able to give us information. We could hear the deep breathing, the intensity that you were feeling being in the action there, the 3 wide, 4 wide, almost on occasion action that was going on here at Kentucky. A lot of people don't realize just the mental and physical toll that this type of racing takes on a sim racer.
And I think you heard it from me in those last 10 laps as well. I just said, Seth, I can't commentate anymore. I've got to focus. I've got to drive. And I had to. A lot of people will sit down and they'll say, hey, look, you should be able to talk and you should be able to drive and these sorts of things. Yeah, you can. Just not at that level with how close everything is. It's intense when the overtakes happen, where the car's positioned, and exactly what Craig said. You're making decisions at 360 kilometers an hour, above 200 miles an hour, 210, 220 miles an hour, in moments, right? Moments. And at those speeds, it's got to be precise. Now, in your road car, yeah, you can talk, you can have a conversation because you're doing at most 60, 70, 80 sort of miles an hour. That's as fast as you're really ever going to get up to. You've got a lot of time to make those decisions. You just can't do that in a race car and compete and be fully aware of all your circumstances, the level of information coming through the steering column, through your software, through all your visual aids. It's just so intense. I got the opportunity on, it's currently Monday morning here in Australia. I got the opportunity on Friday to go out and drive a real race car for the first time ever. And that steps it up another level again. And that was only at lower speeds, nothing like we're doing here, So it's intense. And I hope everyone out there got to experience what it's like from a cockpit. And just what's going through my head, because I think you heard a few of the decisions that I'm making, what I'm trying to do, where I'm positioning the car, how I'm thinking about the race at large, and I hope it just added an extra dimension to the commentary we were able to provide.
Yeah, absolutely. Brings it about an entirely different perspective from the driver's standpoint of view of just what they're feeling when they take to the racetrack in a race of this type of level of competition. But thanks once again to everybody that tuned in here tonight. Next week, we continue on the 6th season of the Dark Horse Racing Series presented by Troy Lee Designs at New Hampshire. Green flag scheduled to fly at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you guys will join us for that. Scott, once again, it's been a pleasure to have you in the booth here tonight, and maybe we'll get to have you up here a couple of more times here during the course of the season.
We'll see. It's just not a good timing for me, unfortunately. Like I said, Mondays. So I'm actually in a lot of meetings at work on Mondays. So luckily enough, I ended up with a day off today, and we can make it happen. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've missed this a lot, like you guys wouldn't believe. But unfortunately, life gets in the way.
Well, back-to-back weeks, Craig Forsyth finds himself in victory lane. Your winner here tonight at Kentucky. We'll see you all next week at New Hampshire. For Scott Rankin, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flat Out Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flat Out Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flat Out Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flat Out Racing Network would like to thank you for your support